Oh, it's live. That went live really quick this time. Okay, it's showtime. Hi, Luke and Fox of Fate and Mystery 09. My fruit punch happening tonight. It's like blood orange, raspberry, lemon, lime. Quite tasty. Yeah, an impromptu live stream. I just had the urge to do it because tomorrow's not a school day, as they say, because of the public holiday. There you go. I'm just changing my angle slightly. And hello, Heist. How you doing? And yes, why not? I mean, there's lots to talk about. Probably having a surprise guest at about the halfway mark. Something to look forward to. At least I think it's something to look forward to. Having a surprise guest. Hopefully have an interesting conversation that I'll also record for my podcast. Luke, am I still sick? I'm not 100%, man. I'm honestly not 100%. So my voice might go on me. I'm still a bit phlegmy, coughing a bit. But and I am a bit sort of, it's easy for me to get tired. Hi, Miss Foxification. How you doing? So it's yes, it is what it is. It's not coronavirus, so it's got that going for it. Just a cold. It's not even a serious one. Just hanging around a bit. It was never very acute. I did actually take a couple of days off work because I was just so run down. But, you know, on the mend, like a Fox of Fate, little Avi Yemeni's chopping board. God, I posted a video. I might even play it on here because it's just so funny. An old YouTube buddy, Sean Bedlam, took it, but a lot of people take video. Preamble, Avi Yemeni, for people who don't know him, is a nasty little right-wing shit stain. It's like from an Orthodox Jewish family, yet he has repeatedly validated and platformed neo-Nazis. And people go, you call everyone Nazis. No, this is people with actual swastika tattoos who openly worship Hitler. And just because they were anti-Muslim and little Avi is anti-Muslim, he palled around with them, which I'm sure made his family very happy. But he also has convictions for violence and threats against his ex-partner that involved either throwing a chopping board or a knife or both at his ex-partner and using a carriage service to menace. So basically, he's a piece of shit, and his aspirations are so fucking low. Like you say, he wishes he was Alex Jones or even Ben Shapiro. And so he shows up at any rally that any progressive people are and acts like a cunt, basically, makes a nuisance of himself. Like at the climate rallies, spends a lot of time harassing kids, which is super fucking creepy. And unsurprisingly, he showed up at the Invasion Day protest today, trying to cause trouble, and the cops arrested him, and it's hilarious. And I will play you the video at some point because everyone just make sure, like, if media people are putting mics or cameras at him, they're just shouting out that he's an abuser. It's priceless. And hey, Feeler and Sealer, how are you going? Yes. Oh, sorry, the coronavirus is talking about there. I think there was one confirmed case, someone who actually flew in from Wuhan, which is like the hotspot in China, and he was infected. And so they were contacting everyone who was on his flight. I think there were up to half a dozen people under observation, but I don't know that there's any more confirmed cases than that one case. But we'll see. It either will or won't be really bad. I have to admit, I don't have a lot of time for people who say, it's over nothing, you know. You got upset over SARS and it didn't kill that many people, and avian flu didn't kill that many people. That's because of a lot of medical professionals worked very hard to contain it, and in a lot of cases lost their own life in the effort to contain the spread of the disease. Because you talk to people who work in that area of infectious diseases, they're fucking paranoid all the time. Because the last super deadly infectious disease was the Spanish flu, which struck at the end of World War One and killed more people worldwide than World War One. Killed more people in Europe, I think, than World War One did. So millions and millions. And that's when it took ages to travel anywhere. And what the infectious disease people justifiably freaked out about, if any sort of disease nearly as contagious, nearly as deadly as the Spanish flu broke out again, with the speed at which the speed at which people travel around the world, a death toll in the hundreds of millions is quite realistic, which is, pause for thought. Maybe don't rag on the people who work in infectious diseases, who pull all stops out when a threatening outbreak happens. Okay, Miss Fox Vacations got the news break. 3 men in a hospital in Sydney after flying in from China. Another man in his 50s being treated in Melbourne. 2 who in Sydney were directly from Wuhan. 3rd man came from the southern city of Shenzhen. So there you go. We still don't know what's going to happen. The Chinese authorities appear to be taking it very seriously and taking some quite strong measures, stopping movement between and out of the infection zones, maybe or possibly definitely setting up huge treatment centers, in other words, purpose-built hospitals to try and deal with it. Feeling silly. You saw the video, a bunch of people digging in China to build the new hospital. Stunning and scary. Well, see, that's the thing with a totalitarian state. You can make shit happen when you're not driven by capitalism. You're driven by the dictates of the state. If the state dictates something is going to happen, then it happens, because they can just shift resources like that. It's a bit like that. Hey, Matt, good to see you. Oh, well, I'm glad I'm one of the reasons you're still on YouTube. That's a positive thing. I like that. It's, the biblical plagues are upon us. In Australia, we've had fire, ice, and now we're threatened with pestilence. Hopefully it's contained. Hopefully it doesn't turn into I keep calling them infectious disease people. I'm sure they've got a name. Yes, the people who are worried about a pandemic. Hopefully we don't get one, because yes, with the speed of travel around the world now and the porous nature of borders, a pandemic anywhere near the severity of the Spanish flu could very easily result in hundreds of millions of deaths. So, yikes. This is one of those bright points, if we are at all sensible, are mortally concerned about climate change and how it seems to be accelerating, and how we seem to be seeing really bad impacts that only a few years ago we were being warned might happen in 50 years, and now they're happening now. And we used to think we had this century to sort things out. And now most people who know what they're talking about are saying, we have a couple of years to sort this out, or it will be irreversible. There will be catastrophic, irreversible things. Isn't it fun to know something else might kill us first? There might be a global pandemic. We're always on the knife edge of a global pandemic. Or even just if antibiotic resistant infections get worse than they are, that could kill us all. Making hospitals actually death zones rather than healing zones, making surgery impossible because you'd be back in the days of even a slight break in your skin lets infection in and kills you. And hey, Justin, how are you? I did that on one episode of the live stream with AIDSy, talking about the things that could just randomly kill us. We still, look, there could still be an awful situation that results in us all dying in nuclear hellfire. One of those big asteroids could hit us. The supervolcano under like Yosemite National Park could explode and block out the sun for a year or two. We wouldn't have to worry about global warming then, wouldn't we? We'd just be in winter for a couple of years. It's like that rather dark joke in, I think it was probably the first episode of Futurama, where Fox, what did you say, Fox? The main character, a little while since, watch it. Fry, I knew it was a 3-letter thing that started with F. Fry says to Leela, so global warming never happened. And Leela goes, yeah, it did, but nuclear winter cancelled it out. Not implausible. Oh, yes, there's falsification. I heard the death clock closest to midnight, 100 seconds. Of course, because of my vintage, back in the 80s, we were all pretty sure we were going to die in a nuclear conflagration, like it was on 2 minutes to midnight. There were 2 songs I know about that. One was a heavy metal song. I think it's Judas Priest. Might have been Iron Maiden. It was either Judas Priest. No, it was Iron Maiden. It was British metal bands trying to narrow down which one it was. It was Iron Maiden. Had the 2 minutes to midnight. And Midnight Oil, the Australian political band, had one, wasn't called 2 minutes to midnight, but they referenced the death clock. What does the song starts with? Everybody says that God is a good man, minutes to midnight. And the line in that song is, I look at the clock on the wall, it says 2 minutes to midnight. That's from their Red Sails in the Sunset album, which was their first really big hit. Like they had a big fan base. They had a very strong fan base they'd built over a couple of years. They had a couple of albums which the fan loved, but they didn't have huge hits off. Then they had the album 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, which had a couple almost mainstream hits on it. They started to get a profile. And then the album after that, Red Sails in the Sunset, was their first big commercial success, their first big burst onto the mainstream. They'd been on the edge of the mainstream for a while, and that really launched them into the mainstream. And yeah, they got a few anthemic songs under their belt over the years. I was a bit of a Midnight Oil fan when I was at college. I saw them live twice. I think I saw them twice, possibly both times at the Hordern Pavilion. I know the first time I saw them live was the Hordern Pavilion in Sydney. Might have been the second time too. That's a big one, Luke. Beds Are Burning. That's off the Red Sails song, I think. Is it? That might have even been a later one. Now I feel like looking up their songs, what they released, the discography. Midnight Oil's discography on Wikipedia. So yes, they had a self-titled album. Then they had an album called Head Injuries. Yeah, you get it, because they were a bit of a rock band, Headbangers. Then they had Place Without a Postcard. And then 10 to 1. Then Red Sails. Yeah, Diesel and Dust. That was, I think, what Beds of Burning was on. Blue Sky and Morning, Earth Somewhere. Yeah, after Diesel and Dust, they started. It's interesting looking like how high did it get in the charts. Their debut album got to number 43 in the Australian charts, which in 1978 was not bad. And then the follow-up got to number 36, so that was an improvement. Then the third one, Place Without a Postcard, that got to number 12. Like sold 2 times platinum. So, I mean, that's pretty good. But then 10 to 1 actually got to number 3 and 7 times platinum. And then Red Sails in the Sunset, number 1. Diesel and Dust, number 1. Also hit number 1 in New Zealand. That's a fun one. Blue Sky Mining, number 1 in Australia and New Zealand. And then the albums that I'm actually not very familiar with. Earth, Sun and Moon got to number 2 in Australia. Breathe got to number 3 in Australia. That's 1996. 1998, Redneck Wonderland got to number 7. Capricornia 2002 got to number 8. That was the last album they released. So, there you go. And they did release various live things as well, and EPs. Famous, I remember Bird Noises from 1980. I don't have it. I got the Species Deceases one. That was a little 4-track 12-inch. I got that. So, yeah. It's interesting they didn't have number 1 singles in Australia. They had number 1 albums, but not number 1 singles. So they were like an album band. Interesting. Yes, Luke, Beds of Burning, appropriate for Invasion Day. The Dead Heart also. Lemonheads. Is Nick Dalton in my music range for Aussie musicians? I don't know who Nick Dalton is. Allow me to look up Nick Dalton. Who's Nick Dalton? There he is. Oh, he was in the Plunderers. Fuck yeah, that's my vintage. Oh, God. That dude is my vintage, man. I just didn't get his name. Jesus. No, Nick Dalton is my vintage. Fox, you grew up with Green Day around American Idiot? Yes. Philo and Celia used to dance like Peter Garrett. That is a funny. For those who don't know, look up old live things of Midnight Oil, live videos of Midnight Oil. There was some wild dancing, looking borderline like he was having an epileptic fit. So Nick Dalton is slightly older than me, but yeah, no, I used to go see the Plunderers. Yeah, see, he was. There was this whole sort of power pop scene in the 80s, early 90s in Australia, with bands like Falling Joys and the Plunderers and Hummingbirds and heaps of others. And he did some work with the Lemonheads, Evan Dando. There you go. Yes, Lemonheads. That was a big one. Christo, the Wrapped record. Justin, any idea of what's going to happen in the primaries? No. Oh, Glee, you're making me feel young. Okay. It's good to have a friend who makes me feel young. That's a good one. Heist. Linkin Park had an album, Minutes to Midnight. Linkin Park get ragged on a lot, especially people like into Indian hipster music. But when they came out, One Step Closer to the Edge was the first thing that kind of broke through in Australia. I was going, no, it's, band that's not just white guys. They're breaking a bit of new territory. I cut Linkin Park a bit of slack, quite honestly. Nintendo Lunchbox, hello to you in Vegas. I see. Glee, for those who don't know, is one of my dearest YouTube friends and has taught me to try and be careful when talking in stereotypes. Because being an angry Gen X person who was fucked over by boomers and hippies his whole life, I have a tendency to randomly rail and say, I fucking hate boomers and hippies. Glee, again, one of my dearest friends, is a boomer and a hippie. So it's one of those things where it's like you say something that you think is completely legit, not being bigoted, but it can be really hurtful to someone. So it's, one needs to be able to learn, I think is what I'm saying there. So, okay, now we're in the music. See, I wish copyright laws weren't as shit as they were. Like if I started playing music on this, the live stream would get canned. I'd never be able to stream live again. Whereas I would love to be able to be like a radio station and just play music. It would be great. I would try very hard never to hurt you, Glee. But I know if I randomly start going, hippie boomers suck, I fucking hate them, all of them, you're an excellent case in point that that's not a good thing to say. Hi, you can't stop listening to music like in teenagers. I still do throwbacks. I love the streaming services. I mean, I have my own collection. I've still got all my 80s music. But I do love being able to do a playlist from one of the streaming services and just go like, 80s indie. Or just pick one song that I like and have it auto-generate a playlist around that. And, sometimes do 80s, sometimes 90s, and sometimes modern stuff. Hey, Gecko, how you doing? What's that one? Big Bad Ads, Rage Against the Machine. Luke, no, Z, you're saying, can I play music and then in the live stream and then delete the live stream? No, if I started playing music, I'd probably be shut down within 30 seconds. The YouTube fucking censor is that finely attuned, it would pick up copyright material and shut me down in about 30 seconds. So I really can't do it. Feeling silly, think we haven't had a disaster movie for a while. We haven't had a good one for a while. That's true. There was a really dumb one I watched at Gerard Butler, and it was about a space station that was meant to control and moderate weather so we didn't have extreme weather events, and it got taken over by bad guys who wanted to use it as a weapon and destroy a lot of stuff. So that had a lot of disaster stuff in it. But yeah. Nintendo Lunchbox. I've got. I'm allowed to use Amazon because I've got Amazon Prime, but I actually prefer the YouTube Music algorithm to application, the YouTube Music app, to the Amazon one. You can get some good stuff on the Amazon one, but I like the playlists better on the YouTube one. But I sometimes swap between them just to get variety. But it's good, so I like being able to mix up. Like, occasionally just go to new releases and see, look, who's put a new thing out, and play that, and then it auto generates a playlist of similar stuff from that first one, and that's kind of fun. Whichever genre you choose, like last road trip I did with Mrs. Angry. I said, pick one song and it'll just keep playing stuff after that. And she wanted to play, it was a 70s song because it was in the soundtrack. I think it was about Fallout. but it was in the soundtrack of a game she was playing, and I actually forget what it was. It was quite well known 70s song, and so yeah, we selected that, and so yeah, then we had like an hour of 70s prog rock. Oh, you can hear that noise, Gecko. Who's knocking? It's very weird. There's a sliding door over there leading into the kitchen where I am, and I don't know, air currents in the house make it rock back and forth. So that's why you keep hearing a knocking noise. But yeah, every now and then, particularly, I'll pick out something very unusual, very different to what I've been listening to, just so it shakes up the streaming algorithm and puts different stuff in any auto-generated playlists. It's pretty good like that. So, Luke, it is not, to the best of my knowledge, a ghost. It is very insistent, isn't it? It's very insistent. Just keeps going. But Gecko, you think I should get some little felt pads from a department store? Possibly. I could look at what might work, but I also don't want it to interfere with the movement of the door. But you raise a good point. It may well be possible to do something, because it is a fairly annoying noise, actually. I always hear it, and I don't think anyone's ever commented on it before. Yes, I am wearing a Halloween Witch Snoopy t-shirt, which I got from one of those online t-shirt shop that do the mashup t-shirts. I got it in one of their Lucky Dips. They do the thing occasionally, get a random shirt instead of, they have like the daily shirt for $5 or whatever. And every now and then they go, oh, we've got a bunch of leftover ones in the warehouse. Just tell us your size and we'll send you some random ones for really cheap. Feelings really think it sounds like tradies. Even Vader has. Okay, it's getting annoying. I think I could do a temporary fix to it. You can just look at the paper. Oh, look, you can look at my beautiful drink carts. How's that? Want to look at my drink carts? Look at my drink carts. I'm going to try a temporary fix over here. I have a theory. I have a theory of a thing that might work. There. I think that will work. I might have done that. Ooh, Gecko, you've got an interview for an Elevator Union apprenticeship program. Hope that goes well. Nice. Nintendo Lunchbox. Have I heard the Democrat closing argument speech? No, I have kind of been ignoring the whole impeachment trial thing since the Republicans had made it clear they weren't even going to pretend to be impartial. It's what I always said all along. The Republicans were never going to vote to remove Trump from office. But I was really surprised the degree to which they openly said, we are not going to even pretend to be remotely fair, which I thought, it just shows how fucking obnoxious they are, because they could have lied. They could have just lied and said, we're going to consider everything, and then just gone, oh, we considered it. No. But they straight up said, no, we're just going to acquit him. We're not going to. It's like, wow, okay, cool. So everyone's suitably wowed by my drink collection. You know what I should do? I should show you. I'm definitely, maybe I'll work on it tomorrow. I got to launch my cocktail channel at some point. But I shot a little bit. I shot a little bit of video of all my bottles of booze lined up, and I think I got like 50. If you count like the flavored things I made and had in decanters, I had about 50 different containers, and I might look. If I upload this video to Facebook, then you get an idea of how much stuff I actually have. Got this like slow-mo. And if I put it up on Facebook, then I can show it to you. We'll do that. Cocktail. David, how's it going? Yeah, they were all too dodgy on the fridge, my bottles. So my Christmas present was a couple of drinks carts, and I have them on there. Much easier to manage. Yeah, I have to bloody just decide on the angle with my cocktails. I mean, I was just going to call it Angry Cocktails because I have a brand, so I have brand recognition. All righty. I think it's there. Let me look, and I can share this with you. There we go. There we go. What's going on here? Click to expand. See if I can get. Oh. Okay. Let me try this. I'm gonna share this with you. This is we'll think about something new. Control your music, videos, and more. Cool. David, cocky cocktails with Angry Aussie, easy branding. Nice. So now I've got to do my share screen. A Chrome tab and my Facebook. Okay. So I'll make it full screen. Hopefully. There we go. And check it out. This, see the skulls at the front. That's the stuff I flavored. Sorry, I did it. This is like with the iPhone's slow-mo feature. This is not very high res, is it? I don't want to use this on. Okay, that probably answers the question for me. I don't want to use this on YouTube. So yeah, that's the ones I flavored in the skulls. You see the absinthe and the gin and Critical, Cointreau, Liga 43, Macho Pisco's, Peruvian Pisco, brandies and Falernum, and some Jamisons there, limoncello. You see, there's lots. I count them up. There was like 50 different things. Again, there's a really dusty bottle of port there. Kraken spiced rum, an Australian vodka, Aperol, rye whiskey, bourbon, Scotch whiskey. There's Irish whiskey there too, some Southern Comfort, Applejack, which is an apple brandy. Good old Aussie classic. It's not Aussie, but it was a 70s drink, Cinzano. But there you go. Let's stop. That was my drink collection. Nintendo Lunchbox, sign off from the old Angry Aussie videos. That's the news and that's the truth when I was doing the angry news. Luke Morfoot, there is absinthe in there, but it's not green. I have blue absinthe. Absinthe is not naturally green. In fact, one of the things I've got here is green chartreuse, which is a milder taste than absinthe, but is related to it, and is also comparatively high alcohol, like 50-something%. But yes, green chartreuse, they proudly proclaim they're the only naturally green liqueur. I'm not sure if that's right. Nintendo Lunchbox, I don't ever think I said anything about pissing off, but I did have a bit of music someone did for me, an Aussie whose online username was Blordo. And he's a multi-talented guy. He's an animator, artist, game programmer, and musician. And he does a lot of... He does this interesting mix of screamo, metal, and ambient music. And he did an Angry Aussie song that... after doing this screamo, Aussie, Aussie. And then it was this really melodic beat where it goes, if you piss him off, you're in for a treat. He will rip you to pieces verbally. So that was a music outro. Fox, yes, I still have the macadamia liquor. In fact, I have not drunk that much of it. I just use it. Look, where is it? I'll show you. This is the one. I've had this for a while, and it's still half there. It's an Australian macadamia nut liqueur. Where are we? It's just called Mac. An Australian macadamia nut liqueur. Where's it from? It's from New South Wales, the Cape Byron Distillery. They make a few things. I got this for something new because a lot of cocktails have a European, often almond or walnut based liqueur in the recipe. I thought it was something a bit different. I'll get this macadamia one, and if if I find a recipe that wants an almond liqueur or something, I'll just swap in the Mac. Gecko, you have the intro with the deep bass. Is that the totally fucked up one or the Angry Aussie one? It's just like so cool. People just, I didn't ask any of these people to do themes for me. They just did because they're cool like that. So this Voxification, I might like VNV Nation. From what perspective might I like them? What are they? It's why I don't know. I may well like them. Oh, sorry. I've still got the Nick Dalton page open. He opened the Half a Cow bookshop. Oh, man, I used to go to Half a Cow when I was in Sydney. There you go. That was weird. Okay, that Angry Aussie. That was the first theme music for me. Guy made friends with NSG Music. He was in London at the time, but is actually Indonesian born. I think he's actually moved back there. He's a very good producer, that guy. What's this? VNV Nation sounds blend poetic and thought-provoking lyrics with sound that range from melodic dance beats and indie electronic anthems to haunting ballads, post-classical soundtrack pieces. Nice. Luke, you should bring back the angry phone. I have just been too lazy. What would be funny is because phone numbers get reassigned sometimes, and I've had two different numbers for the angry phone number, and I dropped the last one years ago. They could have got reassigned somewhere, and on old videos, that number is still listed in the details. It's possible some poor bastard out there gets abusive calls, someone wanting to abuse me. That'd be a bit rough. Was that Fox of Fate? Australian themed cocktail idea. Rum, mac, and some pineapple juice or apple juice for Tassie. Yes, it's good to have and in fact, the mac would sort of cut across the sweetness of the other ones. Trying to think what else we could put in for Australia Day video. Oh, well, actually, I've got some Australian vodka over there. I could put that in too. I think, what other? I've got Australian rum, of course, we have Bundaberg rum, the Mac, and I've actually got Australian vodka. Could do that. Gecko, did you ever watch the YouTube channel Outback Zach? I did, in fact. Vaguely, I remember that. I can't remember specifics about it now. Well, big bad ads has to be Bundy rum. I was really happy when I found Bundy actually do a white rum because then I could color and flavor it. There's another one you can sometimes get in Dan Murphy's, another Queensland distiller that makes rum, Beanley. They sometimes have a white rum in fact, I saw that one before I saw Bundaberg had a white rum. But yes, I like white rums because then I can put something else in it to color it and flavor it. He's suggesting Miss Foxification, something with cherry liqueur and blue curacao, something white. Oh, yeah, red, white, and blue. I don't have blue curacao. I do have blue absinthe, though. Oh, there you go, big bad ads. You live in Beanley. You've got a locally made rum. Gecko. Outback Zach would stand in various bathrooms and do rants. That does not sound as familiar, but I feel like I did see a channel called Outback Zach. But you know, lots of things blend into the background over the years. So sometimes I think I might get Darius, any Kahlua love? Ew, no. Not trying to be snobby. I just don't like coffee. I don't like coffee flavored things. Fox, I made red rum years ago, actually. And talking about Aussie, it was Beanley rum with Redskin lollies dissolved in it. Doesn't get much more Aussie than that. An Aussie white rum with Redskin lollies dissolved in it. Okay, yeah, Miss Foxification, you were saying red, white, and blue for the Australian flag. We do the Indigenous flag. I don't have anything black. Oh, actually, I do have. Having said, I don't like coffee flavored things. I do have this little thing of coffee flavored tequila that was a free add-on with a bottle of tequila I bought. Yeah, I have used it's this big and I've still got most of it because I'm a little bit in a drink. Gecko, you think he's hidden all these old videos? Okay, fair enough. Darius, people are Philistines because they don't like Kahlua. Fair enough. I just don't like coffee flavored things. Oh, Fox of Fate. It tasted very sweet. It tasted like Redskins and rum, basically. Yes, and I did it. It was a Shining reference when I did it. The red rum. Yes. Lemonhead. Anyone get a chance to see Doctor Sleep? Oh, I have not seen it yet. No, I did like The Shining, although I don't know if this sounds weird, but my favorite bit of The Shining was the opening shot, the helicopter shot that was following the car driving through the twisty-turny mountain road. I thought that was just visually incredible. I thought that was an amazing shot. Not like a huge fan of The Shining. I think Jack Thompson. Jack Nicholson is overacting all the way through, and I think Shelley Duvall's acting is so fucking bad in that. Just so chewing up the scenery. And that's put me off that somewhat just because I think they're overacting in it. So yeah, you could do an Australian flag, red, white, and blue, or an Indigenous flag, black, red, and yellow. I do have yellow. I do have red. Put a little bit of the coffee liqueur, the coffee tequila in for black. It'll just be a little bit though. Red, white, and blue. I'd have. Well, again, I could use the blood orange vodka I made, and I have lots of white spirits and blue absinthe. Bit of a joker. Those original Batman movies, like with the ones starting with Michael Keaton, they're not bad. They're pretty campy, but they're not bad. And okay, here's a possibly controversial statement. While the Batman movie where George Clooney played Batman was fucking awful, I don't think that's a controversial statement. I think George Clooney was a very good Batman. I think he made a good Batman. I think he was better than Keaton or Kilmer. Admittedly, the movie he was in was fucking terrible. But I thought he was a good Batman. And, of course, they all faded into the background with the Christopher Nolan Batman movies with Christian Bale playing the Bat. Is much better. I will be in, and Ben Affleck was okay. Again, the movies he was in were fairly shitty. They weren't great. I think Robert Pattinson stands to be a very good Batman. Who knows? Those movies, upcoming movies, might be good, might be bad. Who knows? Oh, wow, Gecko. Adam Savage from Mythbusters did a full-scale reproduction of the Hedge Maze from The Shining. Okay, cool. Right. But I might have a surprise guest in the next 10 or 20 minutes. And if I do besides continuing the live stream, and by surprise guest, I mean in the studio. And if he does get here, which I think he's planning to, I'll be recording a chat for a podcast as well. It's my friend Alexa, who I've known for a few years. He's Iranian. And we were talking the other day, and he said, would you want to do a talk on the whole Iran-US debacle with an Iranian to get an Iranian's point of view? And I said, yes, please. That would be very good. So hopefully Alexa will be here soon, and we'll be talking about that. Jen, you think Clooney was a good Bruce, but Batman was no different? Well, that's almost potato. I basically thought he was good in the role. I'm not going to argue with your interpretation on that. Miss Foxification, you want to see Gary Oldman as a villain? He is pretty good at doing villains. He's getting on somewhat in years these days. So I don't know what he wants to do these days. But he's certainly done some good villains over the years. Oh, good Fox. Epic rap battles of history did Pennywise versus a Joker. And had some good lines like, no one's dying to play with Joker except maybe Heath Ledger. That's harsh. Safra, I'm not a fan of the tennis. I'm not a fan of sports generally. I just don't really give a shit about sports. And no, I don't really give a shit about the tennis. All right. So if I was going to do some flag cocktails, why not? Why not indeed? I can't layer them because I don't have the right tools for the layering of them. But I can contribute the colours. Lychee. That might be a bit... Oh, I've got so many white spirits. I've just got to decide which one to use. Obviously, I could do vodka or gin. I've got white tequila. What else have I got? Lychee liqueur. Pisco, which is a Peruvian... it's a brandy, really, I suppose. It's a great brandy. So far, I feel a bit better, but my voice is still a bit scratchy. A dessert spoon to layer. You can try and layer and with varying degrees of success. If you really want to do it formally, you've got to know the consistency of the different things. I think I basically probably just can't be bothered. But I put the colors in. So if I do, coconut. I've got a coconut liqueur. That's white. Okay, if I go absinthe, coconut, and the red vodka. Yes, I think I'll try that. Okay, time to get some components. So, the old trusty tiki mug, Red Skull. Want a big old block of ice for that, which means going to the big old ice cube container. Big old block of ice. So if we're going to do red, white, and blue, what should be the white? Okay. What have I got? Maraschino liqueur, which is white. So if I was going to go, I'm going to go this. The red is going to be this blood orange vodka. The blue is going to be absinthe. The white, I have a bunch of white spirits. I could do a lychee liqueur, pisco, maraschino cherry liqueur, tequila, vodka, or gin. Which should it be is the question. That's the big question. What should be the white spirit? Shannon, yes, catch up and drink. That sounds like a fine plan. Oh, this Foxification is sharing some more stuff about Corona. Incubation period up to 14 days. Infectious during incubation, which was not the case with SARS. There you go. Nintendo Lunchbox, is this real life or is this just fantasy? You think I should do coronavirus? Yes, I don't know that I have it. All right. What would go well? Absinthe. Well, that's already vodka. Don't want to double up on the vodka, really. Absinthe makes the heart lose weight. No, I am going to do the coconut, actually. This will be weird. This will actually be quite weird. I'll give it a go. Okay. Coconut. Absent. All right. Let's see what happens here. All right. I'm going to put red on the bottom for a start. Little shot of the red. No, Nintendo Lunchbox, you're not a fan of coconut? I quite like it as a flavor. And no, that didn't layer at all. It just blended, but that's okay. I'm not bothered about that. And some blue for the top. Squeaky cork. Oh, that layered a bit. Here, look, let me show you this. The colours of the Australian flag in there. Red, white, and blue is it actually in there. Although, if I mix it, it's just going to go really murky. Oh, it's gone purple. That's pretty good. It looks kind of black on the screen. In real life, it's got an actual quite appealing purple tinge. Now, I don't know if this needs something because I've never made this before. Let's see. Ooh, that's a real licorice fix right there. It's actually pretty good, just like that. Maybe a tiny bit of sweetener, take the edge off it. Tiny bit of sugar syrup. I have agave syrup. Just a tiny bit, and mix that in. I think it's gone from being the Australian flag to being bushfire smoke. Maybe that's what we should call it, bushfire smoke. I should put like a single malt whiskey in there for a smoky flavour. Oh yeah, that's it. Oh yeah, that's got the flavours happening in there. Oh, Shannon, the Anisian drama on YouTube. Yes, talked about that in previous live streams. I find it hilarious because I've never liked Anisian, and you find out that he has all this creepy stuff going on, and he's been targeted by Chris Hansen of To Catch a Predator fame. And personally, the most hilarious bit to me is Chris Hansen showed up at Anisian's door, and Anisian called the cops, called 911. So this person, it's like a stalker, he's coming to get me, and he's awful. And the 911 operator says, do you know the person's name? And Anisian kind of pauses and goes, it's Chris Hansen. Like, it really, takes some hubris to call the cops and say, you know that person who's famous for exposing pedophiles and predators? He's at my door. I'd like you to send the police around. That's a pretty risky game plan right there. Oh, Fox, I plan to make more than one cocktail tonight because I don't have to go to work tomorrow. I think I'll do an Aboriginal flag next because I do have options for red, white, and black. Yeah. I don't really want to start. I don't mind when places use smoke in the drinks, but I don't really want to start setting things on fire in my kitchen. I actually do have a cinnamon stick somewhere over there, the cooking supplies. but I don't want to start setting things on fire in the kitchen. But just, the risk factor. Yeah, no, I agree. People saying about, Chris Hansen is hassling me, as you think that makes Chris Hansen look bad. Yeah, it's it was, to me, it was just an unintentional bit of fucking champagne comedy. There's a guy at my door hassling me. Who is it? Chris Hansen, the To Catch a Predator guy. He says he's here for me. It's like, what the fuck? Honestly. Also, why do I still do this for a phone? No one uses landline. Should be this. Everyone's using a handheld mobile. And even most phones, you do this anyway, not this. Should be doing this. I'm on the phone like this. But I'm old. I'm used to, this is a telephone. Yes, I have a gas stove, Fox, but a gas does not give off smoke, and I'm worried about setting off the smoke. Well, not that you have a smoke detector in the kitchen, of course, because it would go off all the time. Smoke detectors out there. I just don't want to set stuff on fire in the kitchen. Oh, speaking of setting things on fire from the elements of the stove, did anyone else see the social media story of a tattoo that a lot of people didn't get? And it was a stove hot plate, one of those circular electric stove hot plates, the spiral ones with like two knives on it. And a lot of people had no idea what this tattoo was representing. I heard the kids today are calling it spotting. Back in my day, we called it hot knifing. It's not a thing I did because I wasn't into marijuana or hash. But what it was is a metal knife, and you put just a little bit of hash on the tip of the knife, and then heat it up on an element on a stove until the hash starts burning, and then you just inhale the smoke from the burning hash, like if you don't have a bong. That happened in a shared house I was in a lot. All the knives had this discolored bit on the fucking tip of the knives from them being heated up on the element. Yes, Shannon. Been here for 10 years. Secondhand experience from museum. Yeah, that's it is a Wild West way, an old school way of getting high. It's when you don't even have a fucking juice bottle to and a garden hose to stick your cone in. It's literally you had nothing else, so you'd hot knife it, heat the knife up on a stove element, a little bit of hash on the end, and then inhale the smoke. Again, not drug shaming anyone. It's just at the time when my housemates were doing it, and I still don't. I don't smoke anything. I don't smoke weed. I don't smoke hash. I don't smoke anything. But yes, when my housemates were doing this, I was not. Yeah, that's the thing, Fox. Yeah, you get a sauce bottle and a garden hose. Sometimes you don't even have the bottle and the hose. The hot knifing was when you don't have even the basics. God, now I'm just flashing back to shared houses and drugs. One of my shared houses in Sydney, and it was it was a 2-story terrace. So there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 other people in the house. I was the only one not doing heroin. That was funny. Funny is not the right word, but weird. That was the experience. I give you, if anyone wants me to tell the kids scary drug stories, try and put them off drugs, I have a few. Like I said, there was that one shared house where everyone but me was on heroin. I did have a housemate have a psychotic break from speed abuse, amphetamine abuse, just constant. Because for those who don't know, speed and cocaine for that matter, uppers basically, cause sleep deprivation. And if you do them all day, every day, you don't sleep. And she was doing them all day, every day for a couple of weeks, certainly didn't sleep at all for over a week. And as multiple studies have shown, when you, even without amphetamines, if there's some way to keep you from sleeping for an extended time, you have psychosis. Alexa's here. Okay, cool. Just the screen will be blank for a while. That's okay. Oh, yeah. Alexa's here. Eva, Alexa, Eva.
Very late.
That's okay.
Okay.
We're straight in there in the kitchen. This through here. The slide you want there.
Shoes on?
Oh yeah, shoes on. Go. Oh, Beauty loves attention.
Okay, I'll pay some.
She loves to visit.
Eva's just playing her new game in the next round. All right, so we're actually streaming live, so you're actually on in the background. So
Right, okay, cool.
Mimsy's going to come in and join us. This is Alexa, everyone. Hey, everyone.
Hello, I just arrived.
Here, bring up the second chair.
Can I
What?
put my phone to be charged in the meantime?
Yes, in fact.
Look at that.
Well, you just made it 1%. All right.
Oof.
Mine's charged now. Lightning jack. What are we doing? That's weird. Why isn't it going in? Is it an iPhone?
No, it's
No,
not.
it's a Samsung.
I've got a cable.
Okay. You'll have to use your cable.
Yeah.
It kind of looked like an iPhone connector there. All right.
Yeah, by the way, Samsung is the standard one.
Okay. Oh, but iPhone's not standard. iPhone sucks the way they made a non-standard thing. All right. Yeah, we're just getting ready. Yeah, okay. So take out that funny white plug.
This one.
Yeah, and put yours in there. And I'm going to get my audio recorded too.
All right.
Yeah.
So where are the messages? Hey guys. Yeah, that's our fridge. No, that's an old message. Fridge stream. Waving. Hey, Miss Foxification. Like that. I'm actually working on a project. We've called it Flying Fox.
Okay. We
So-
got a few foxes on the channel.
Yeah.
Actually.
So where is Miss Foxification from? Is she from-
Northern Territory, I think.
Australia. Amazing.
Yeah, she's Australian.
That's good. So she would have probably thought about Flying Fox.
And Fox of Fate is Australian as
Fox
well.
of Fate.
We have a few foxes in here.
Alright.
And although it's not in his username, Luke, who's in here, his first owner is a fox. So, yeah. Oh, what am I doing? Okay, got to try and balance it up a bit. That looks about right. Yeah, so would you like a beverage, Alexa?
I don't mind.
I
I
mixed
started H2O. H2O.
H2O?
Yeah,
You start with
yeah,
H2O?
yeah.
Yeah. Do you like ice or
Neat.
just neat? Okay,
Yes.
I've got some filtered water here.
Yeah. That's the scientific method. You start with the basics so you kind of
Yeah.
build up and understand.
No,
And you
that's
can always
pretty
kind of build back. Hey, Safa. Safa. Safa in Persian means, it's a very nice word.
Is it?
Yeah.
I think Safa is Eastern European, actually.
Well, it might be. It's just
I mean,
two
the
syllables.
person with the username, I think, is Eastern
The word. Yeah, Safa is a nice word, so you can
Okay.
actually proudly bring it up with your Persian friends.
Oh, good.
Did you know
That's good.
some words don't translate well? in different
Yes,
cultures?
yes, that is true. Abigail's saying I'm looking different. Yes, I'm going to introduce Alexa, who's come by, special guest. We were hanging out earlier Friday night, YouTube Geek Night, and Alexa brought up, hey, do you want to talk about the whole Iran-America thing with Iranian? And I thought that would be
Straight to
pretty
it.
good, actually. No. Well, we're not straight to it. I'm just giving you a bit of background. So,
Yeah, so they always love talking and everything anyways,
Yeah.
but I'm too humble as well. So I never claim to be an expert on anything. So I never
Alright.
get into any interview. But
Yeah,
this one was something I thought I may be able to contribute.
I
And
think so. I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I allowed myself to actually kind of say I like to contribute because it's a topic that kind of is impacting people I know personally.
Yeah, and I think that's the interesting thing to get into,
Mm.
just the personal story. So I'm going to record this, and it's going to be on a podcast. So normally when I'm doing a live stream, I say hi to everyone and
Yeah.
answer things. So, but while we're recording for the podcast, I'm not going to do that so much. But
Yeah.
we can keep one eye on the things going past.
Yeah.
If someone asks a question that you think is really pertinent that you actually want to address,
Yeah.
we'll do that. But don't feel bad about not answering everything, because I'm thinking from the perspective of someone listening back later to the podcast.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
If they don't have the benefit of it,
Yeah.
we'll do it. So this is working.
How many people we have in
Oh,
the house? 12
Oh, it's only about 12 here at the moment.
watching.
It's been varying between that and about 20, 25.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, cool. So we've got one expression of interest.
yes.
The Big Bad Ads. Yeah, thank you. Thanks for expressing. I'm sure other people might be, you've got one for you,
Yeah.
might also be interested, but not saying it, which is, so I'm very native in live streaming,
Yep.
but very shy in other form of publication.
Ah,
So, yeah. So,
Okay.
yeah,
So
that's
the
my
live stream is
format,
good.
yeah.
That's okay. So, Aussie Gun Bunny, hi. We're about to start recording for a podcast, man, with my friend Alexa. So what we'll do, we'll start recording, give it a couple seconds silence so I can edit it easily.
Good.
And then I'll do an intro for the podcast, and then we'll start talking. And my normal way of talking on both live streams and podcasts might have an idea in mind, but if everything goes off on a mad tangent,
Yeah.
don't feel bad.
Awesome, yeah.
I quite enjoy that if that
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah.
If we stay completely on topic, well and good.
Yeah.
but
I'm fine with that. And also, I give you full permission to kind of bring me back to the track. If you
Yeah.
like.
Okay. So do it. And I might even break to make a drink at some point. But anywho, okay, I'm gonna start my recorder. That's going. All right, got my little audio recorder there, which will be slightly better quality than from the stream, and hopefully I don't cough too much from now on. Okay, brief pause. Hi everyone, thanks for joining us for the Angry Aussie podcast. I have a special guest today, my friend Alexa. Hello to you, sir.
Hello, Andrew, and all your audience, and everyone else who would be listening to this at one point.
Now, I've known Alexa for a couple of years. We met at a social media breakfast function, and we've caught up on and off over the years. And we did catch up on Friday night for YouTube Geek Night. We both work in technology.
Yeah.
And Alexa brought up, Alexa is actually Iranian, and said perhaps with Iran and America and tensions around all that being in the news so much, people might be interested in hearing some personal stories on that, to which I thought, hell yeah. So first up, how long have you been in Australia, Alexa?
6 years.
6 years?
Yeah, just became 6 years.
So did you come straight from Iran, or have you lived around the world?
Good question. No, I lived mainly in Tehran most of my life, and a quarter of every year to kind of country town where my parents came from. So I'm a country boy and kind of a city boy as well.
Okay.
But I lived in Tehran for most of my life.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to go, I get to be the dumb, ignorant one asking
for
the
it.
straightforward questions. From the outside, a lot of people are fed the idea that since the revolution, where we became the what's the correct term for the current powers that run Iran? Actually,
You mean the regime?
the regime. What would be? I mean, because from my understanding, it's everything's based around Islamic law.
Yes and no.
Yes and no.
I believe after the revolution happened. So firstly, this is, by the way, maybe I give it a quick spiel.
As much history as you like.
So I was born after the revolution, and right after the revolution, so Iran was attacked by the neighbor country, Iraq, and that took 8 years, and I was born in the middle of that.
Wow.
So
okay.
a bit of context to
Yep.
my personal knowledge, and I never was interested in history when I was in Iran, so I didn't collect much information as I was kind of growing up. But I'm quite observant, so what I say mainly comes from my observations and what I've heard from other people. Absolutely no kind of citation or anything. Just take it like that. Okay, so back to your question. What is the regime called? So what I understand is when the revolution happened, right before that, it wasn't quite clear to those who were doing the revolution what the plan is for after that. And so I know that there is actual quotations from the leader after the revolution, Imam, who had said, I won't be leading the country after the revolution, after we succeed, and I'll go back to my kind of office as a religious leader. So that turned out differently. And one out of 4 main groups that were kind of collaborating on the movement kind of dominated over others in a rather apparently very brutal period, which probably took over 10 years, maybe, which I don't know exactly how many years. And the whole thing established on what is known as Islamic Republic. But what they did, they actually wrote a constitution, which what I understand is the basis of the constitution is very, very similar to the US Constitution in terms of the divisions of powers, the 3 main powers. It's not like British and Australian. It's very, very similar to American one. But the difference is that there are some privileges or authorities similar to the rights that Queen has in Australia. Very, very similar to that, is preserved for a position that's called Supreme Leader. And so that's the whole system. And the Supreme Leader is also elected by a council, and the half of that council is also elected by people. So there is some sense of democratic process in the whole thing, but it's very, very complicated, and it's probably flawed. That's what I understand about the whole system.
So, look, you often see this on social media and probably in the mainstream news as well. In the West, there's a common thing of saying, look how open and free and liberal Iran was before the revolution, and look how repressive and dictatorial it is now after the revolution. What was your experience? Did you feel like you were particularly restricted growing up?
Okay, so I'm normally asked this question here, as you can imagine. And my approach to answering this question, firstly, I don't know stories of everyone, so mine might have been a bit biased towards my own personal experience, but my approach is always to bring up the sides that media wouldn't have necessarily covered. Right? So what I say is kind of a bit biased towards the other side. I give you an example. There was in Flinders Street, there was a Christian guy who was preaching about Christianity. Kind of, we got into conversation and everything, and he told me, I've heard Christians are really under kind of oppressed and everything. And what I told him was, I had a few Christian friends, and they were absolutely fine, absolutely. And in fact, so it's even easier for them growing up, because when we were growing up in school, we had to do prayers and everything. Right? Christians didn't have to. When we for a test that everyone does for university at the age of 17, like last year of high school, we had to do Arabic and Islamic law, everyone. But if you had identified as Christian, you didn't have to. You know what I'm saying? So,
I had the opposite. I went to Catholic school. I had to do prayer all the time.
Similar, right?
We had more hours dedicated each week to religious education than we did to mathematics or science or English.
Interesting.
Here
you go.
Which again, that's an eye-opener to some people. It's like maths, English, we had, like in a 5-day week, I think we had 7 periods that were allocated each to maths and English, but we had 8 that were they had different names, but there were basically 8 periods that were religious education. Which lets me get into because by most measurements I'm an atheist these days. Lets me get into awesome arguments with fundamentalist Christians, because most of the time I know the Bible better than them, because I just spend hours studying it every week.
An insider. Interesting. And by the way, this concept, when I learned about the Catholic schools, that was quite interesting for me, because we don't have such a thing. And well, it's kind of spread in all the schools, so it's much lighter. We don't have like a religious school for before. We have particular religious universities that you can actually go into, but before university, all the schools are normal, like public schools. And of course, in all of them, there are studies, which I believe even here in public schools, there is still standard kind of education about religious to some extent.
Yeah, I think, as my understanding is, in some Muslim countries, they have religious schools, and it's going to be a different name in every country, but the one I've heard used is madrasa.
Madrasa?
Madrasa?
Yeah, madrasa means school.
It just means school.
Yeah, in Arabic.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's one of those things you go, I've caught you with the evil word. Yeah, that just means school.
But this is what I know. But in a certain context, this might be the word used for those schools.
I think, and again, I could easily be wrong, but I think in Pakistan, there are some very strongly religious schools with that name. And of course, our neighbor to the north, Indonesia, which is often hilarious to tell Europeans and Americans who don't realize and don't understand. When they think of Islamic countries, they think of the Middle East.
Right, yeah. The picture that comes to your mind is an Arab guy with a dishdasha. What do you call that dress in English?
Yeah.
What would you call it? Like an Arab dress?
I think it probably depends which country it's coming from. But yeah, I get what you mean. There's that Middle Eastern to maybe South Asian idea of what an Islamic man looks like. But our immediate neighbor to the north, Indonesia, is the most populous Muslim country in the world.
That's correct, yeah.
Has the largest standing army of any Muslim country in the world. But we're friends with them. We're great friends. We're buddies. There's no tension at all. Yeah. But yeah, again, when you tell people like you guys actually don't realize that's our neighbors to the north.
Right. Interesting. Yeah.
And I think they're because I mean Indonesia and the territory run by Indonesia is a massive archipelago of islands, and there's really significant cultural differences across those islands.
It's like what I've heard is a spectrum from the north, very kind of strict and might be radical.
Yeah. Yes.
Come to the south, kind of opens up, similar to Nigeria, like random tangent again I'm opening.
Yeah.
I had a very deep conversation with a friend of mine studying international law here in Australia, Nigerian, and I learned a lot about like how the whole dynamic works. So in the south, it's Muslim, and in the north is Muslim, and in the south is Christian, and the types of industries also are different, and it makes the whole very, very interesting dynamic in terms of power between the two, which we can actually talk about it at one point in the future if you like.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, certainly in the south of Indonesia, you get Australia's favorite holiday destination, Bali. The Balinese people, they're way laid back compared to what I think is reasonably called the religious fundamentalists in the more northern areas. And occasionally there's power struggles because life in Bali is pretty decadent. And there are occasional power struggles where people say, I want to enforce a more modest life on it. And the Balinese people tend to be, not really. It doesn't really suit us, dude.
Right.
But again, even just, I'm explaining to people that difference. People have a really monolithic idea of what a Muslim is, which is just not real. But even within Indonesia, the nation of Indonesia is an incredibly different group of people across the islands. But it's a very interesting thing. One of the things you brought up to me when you wrote, hey, let's come and talk about this. Yeah. It is unsurprisingly a huge topic of conversation among Iranian expats.
Okay.
What are the type of conversations you have been having with people?
You mean just recent?
Or just about the tensions with the US?
Yeah, just the recent
tensions. The recent
stuff, weeks.
Yeah.
Well, it's not only kind of it's very personal for Iranians and it's affecting us, so we're talking about it, but it's also very surreal and confusing.
Yes.
And that also, I think that also adds to the whole kind of mix.
Yeah.
So even I don't normally get into kind of political conversations because very early I learned I would know very little about what actually goes on.
Mhm,
So there's not much point of kind of getting myself emotionally involved with things that are gonna kind of run forever, right? Whereas this one is slightly different because it's very confusing. So type of conversations, everyone kind of based on their own kind of experience or way of thinking. They have their own theories, or they're just curious to see what is happening. And what people might not know, but there has been kind of horrific things have happened just in a very short amount of time. Yeah.
And okay, the thing that hit the news here in the West big time is when Trump authorized the strike that killed the guy. He's basically the highest ranked military guy in Iran, and he was one of the top power brokers in Iran, is what we're told. Is that accurate?
You're talking about what just happened?
Yes.
Yeah, because I was also reading one of the comments that we have live. So in my head, it got mixed. So Big Bad Ads, I'll get to your question shortly. It's very related.
Oh, yes. Okay, Big Bad Ads. For anyone listening back to the podcast, we are doing this live. Big Bad Ads is asking about history. We'll start with recent history.
Yes, I'll get to that.
I think it's definitely worth talking about slightly further back history. But so recent events.
Yes, question is, what did Trump do? Who was the guy? Is that what you're asking?
Basically. Yeah, for people who don't really, or have only got a Western media story of he was a bad guy. And I know, again, the people of Iran are not an amorphous blob, and not everyone's going to have seen this guy the same way.
Yeah.
But in your experience with the people you've been talking to, what did this guy mean to people, and what did him getting killed mean to people?
Yeah, sure. So what I'm going to say again, it's not a representative of how Iranians would think. It might be funny because I didn't really know him.
Look, no one outside of a very narrow sort of focused political group of people had ever heard of him before he was killed, and suddenly all the media are saying, "Oh yeah, he's a bad guy. He was our number one bad guy."
This is what actually it might be a bit emotional here, but because this is the whole thing the whole world was things were happening in the whole world. You know, we had the whole impeachment going on, and we had bushfire going on, and this whole thing started as well, like these three things. So everything was crazy already, and one of these crazy things was, of course, the impeachment thing, and I was following that very closely because it's very amusing to me, learning a lot about politics, especially the US version of it. And because of that, I heard a lot, like what you said, about this guy that I didn't even know, and about the fact that how bad he was. And I was, well, to me, like, how would you know him? Like, how would everyone all of a sudden know how bad he was? Specifically, there is a there is a state ex-state minister in Victoria. Whom I'm following on Twitter. I have a huge respect for him. He's a first-gen immigrant, and I always kind of really like the way he talks and his approach, and because he's also had the experience of kind of growing up in a family that is not Australian necessarily, understands, like, relates to people. He puts out a very shocking tweet to me celebrating this guy's death, not at all acknowledging the fact that this might be a political act, this might well trigger a war that actually gets war. It doesn't matter who's right, who's wrong in terms of politically. War gets innocent people killed, and we need to be at a stage where we need to understand this as humans. So war is not good. It doesn't matter who's right or wrong. And seeing someone who's got like thousands of followers on Twitter and is in a position of influence, and of course, same as I had huge respect from, definitely a lot of other people would have huge respect, making a statement right, about something that I don't think he knows anything about, because I wouldn't know. And
was that Sam Dastyari?
No,
he's another immigrant. I was getting confused.
Sam is more of a politician. This guy was a public servant.
He's a public servant.
That's why actually I had huge respect for him. Politicians, you don't really know what they're up to, but public servants are normally great people. And this is just one example. When I see this water is very muddy.
Yes.
And,
oh yes.
And it's the a bit of a rant from for me to say what amazes me, again, detaching myself emotionally, is how we people fail at seeing kind of a much, much larger picture. How no one's actually questioning what is America doing there at the first place, right?
That's this a big one.
Yeah. Well, people start arguing everything, but I always say, hold on a second, but think about it. Just don't think about the argument. Just abstractly, think about it. There is a country literally the other side of the planet, right? And now, why are we even talking about this? So this is I don't know if Iran was right in that particular situation, or I don't know anything. But if someone asked me as a third person just to kind of be the judge for this case, before I even go to the details, I would say, okay, so we've got Iran and Iraq and the US. What is US doing here? I would talk to Iran and Iraq to resolve the issues between them. But what is the US doing here at the first place?
Yes.
If we don't consider this, everything else is irrelevant, because you get what I'm saying. So
absolutely, yes. And there's an American guy, I think he calls himself a conflict journalist, because he's a journalist. He's specialized in going into some war zones. His name's Robert Evans. Does a couple of very good podcasts, very entertaining and humorous ones, but he's a journalist as well. And he spent time in Syria and in Iraq. And he freely is not an expert, but he's been with people in these zones. And he looks at Soleimani and goes, look, okay, you can't be a top military guy anywhere, but probably particularly not the Middle East, without there being some bad stuff behind you. There is stuff that Soleimani's done that you could look at as being objectively good, but Soleimani supported the Syrian regime, and Robert Evans is particularly against the Syrian regime because he spent times in some of those free zones in the north, and he really admired what they were doing. And Syrian regime was incredibly brutal to them, and Soleimani backed that. But there's no getting around. There's the big question of why is America even there? But the actual assassination of Soleimani, that was a criminal act. There's no matter how bad he was, the guy was not in a war zone. He was not engaged in conflict. He was in another sovereign state, and the US just unilaterally launched probably a drone strike on him. There's no two ways about it. That was a criminal act. But then again, the US does a lot of that. And then you could also argue Iran did a fairly limited reprisal. They fired some shells at a base.
What comes after, you mean?
Yeah, and that was also a criminal act. It wasn't an act of war. It wasn't. They weren't engaged in a war.
That's also dismissed the Iraq as a sovereign country as well.
Yes, and that was the big thing, doing it in another sovereign country. It wasn't a war zone. It wasn't an. And
this is really sad that there is a country that has a government which, ironically, is placed by America, right?
Yes.
And it is there now. It is there. There's a government, and there's a process for that. But everyone's kind of seeming to ignore it.
That was one of the scarier parts. It's doing something so aggressive and provocative to Iran was incredibly disturbing. But the fact that the attack was launched in a third sovereign country was incredibly disturbing as well. And we seem to have dodged a bullet somewhat. It hasn't turned out as bad as it could have, although I don't feel like it's over yet. But the immediate fear of what could have happened, it kind of calmed down a bit. And as my understanding is, the Iranian regime sent a very specific message and said, okay, you did that, which was bad, and then we, in retaliation, did this. If you don't do anything else, we won't do anything else.
That sounded like that exactly sounded like that.
Yeah.
As if, we both know we don't want war, but we both we need to deliver something for those, who are backing us, or what we've preached so far.
Yes.
And in America, we've seen America has radical people in the Senate as well. So in Obama era, we saw how they did send a letter directly bypassing Obama to Iranian regime as an example, right?
Yeah.
And Iranians have similar radical people in the government level and also just pseudo government levels as well. And it's very tricky to manage all this. You've got to do something to calm those people down, that we did respond.
Yes.
You can't just not do it, because then the radical people would say, you know what, you're not going to do it.
We're going to do something radical.
So you got to do something that kind of pleases them. So that's very tricky. But exactly like what you said, it sounded like both said, okay, so you hit me, I hit you. Let's settle it for now.
Yeah,
kind of thing.
Which was interesting. It seemed to be like a direct message of, we're done unless you do something else. And it's calmed down at that point. I mean, there's been so much speculation because no one really knows. And also geopolitics, the people involved in politics, no matter who they are, they lie. They don't tell you everything. Yeah. And Soleimani has been a player in Iran since the Iran-Iraq war. That's when he rose to fame as as a general in the Iran-Iraq war. And some very interesting speculation I read, one was that Soleimani might have been on his way to being supreme leader. Another is the more interesting, and even the person putting this forward, because I don't listen to crazy people, but they said like weird stuff happens. There is some chatter that because Soleimani was being much more public in the last couple of years, and they knew that riled up America a bit. And there was one theory that they may have actually been preparing for his martyrdom. Like he knew that if he went really public and publicized where he was going to be, America would eventually hit him.
Right, I see.
That's sinking into conspiracy territory.
You never know. I'll give you a random piece of information here. Again, based on what I know, the current supreme leader.
Yes.
When he became a leader, the whole process was kind of rather overnight.
Yeah.
He wasn't known to be the one who was going to become the leader. Another religious leader who was way more moderate was the one who most people thought it's going to be. So was when the previous first leader died, kind of a very quick, similar to what happened in Australia last year or the year before for Turnbull, overturn of Turnbull and
changing
Morrison.
leadership. Yeah.
Very quickly, that the same thing happened for the current supreme leader. And before that, he was a military person. He was. So there's a lot of photos of him that you can actually see. So this one, I just made this connection now because it's been so long, and it is always seen as a kind of a religious custom. Yes. But he was actually in Iraq war, which was kind of. We were invaded, so we had to do that defense war. He was a military person, not a religious person.
Okay, that's very interesting.
So that transition can also happen.
Yeah, because I'm not that aware of that, because there is, again, in the West, there's this impression that it's a theocratic state, it's a religious government, and so the supreme leader is an imam, is a religious person. But you're saying this guy's military.
That assumption is not correct at all, right?
No, we have lots of assumptions that aren't correct.
The system is democratic. The problem is that it's on paper. The flaws in the process where the corruption can happen. One of them is before someone can become a candidate, there is a thing that's called kind of registering for becoming a candidate. And that's where a lot of kind of eliminations happen as an example. These are like the devil is in the details.
Yes.
But the process is democratic. Even the supreme leader is elected. It's not like the queen, for example, right?
No,
as an
that's
example.
hereditary, yes.
Whereas in practice, it is like the queen.
Yep.
In terms of the powers that he has. But again, he doesn't kind of play politics at all.
So it's
stays away from the politics.
So the supreme leader is an executive head of state.
Correct.
And then there's a political power.
The official title in the Constitution is the chief of three forces.
Right.
Which is the Senate, the jury, and the executive.
And as you say, that's like the American system. There's
exactly that.
The in America they call it the legislative, which
Yes,
is
correct. Yeah,
the Senate and Congress,
That's right.
judicial, which is the courts,
that's right.
and executive, which
Yeah.
is the president's office.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay. So much more like the American system than the English or Australian system.
And actually, people recently have actually exerted their democratic power by electing a rather moderate president, Rouhani, which is the current president. That was kind of rather a movement that people had, inviting each other to come to the polls, even though they had just lost their trust in voting system because of the previous president 10 years ago, right? Again, people invited each other to say, hey, even though that happened, because it's not compulsory, right?
Yes.
Even though that happened, this is the only thing we have.
Okay.
And they came and actually they managed to, and there were other, before Rouhani, when Rouhani was being elected, there were other competitors that were way more extremists.
Right.
So if people hadn't actually participated in the election, the other ones had gone, and you never know what would have happened. Whereas people actually came and actually voted for Rouhani, and that led to a modest government, which kind of coincided with Obama era.
Yes.
That led to the 2015 Iran deal. So these are all the result of Iranians being able to exert their kind of will somehow, but it's very, very limited. They have to really, really want to do it. And now it seems like they're kind of losing hope on that too. That's the tricky part.
Again, bringing it back to the personal, and again, with the disclaimer that we've thrown out a couple times, this is purely a personal story you'll be telling. You don't speak for all of Iran. And again, we all need to understand that despite how politicians and media portray it, Iran is not an amorphous blob. There's an incredibly diverse bunch of people. But in your own experience and in the conversations you've had with people, what's been the dominant feeling, like after Soleimani was assassinated? How have people felt about that? Were they angry? Were they scared? Some sort of combination? Or
well, because I'm not there, I can't really tell. But what I was gathering from social media and kind of my contacts was everyone was really upset, pissed off. If that's allowed on your podcast.
I say so much worse than that. so much worse than that. Okay. But yes,
that was my equivalent of yours. Probably.
No, you're being incredibly polite, Alexa. People were pissed off because look, I understand, and this was, to my interpretation, the overwhelming huge mistake America made with the Iraq invasion. They were literally saying they will greet us as liberators. It's like, dude, you're a foreign power. If you do something, if you invade, even people who weren't particular fans of the regime will say, hey, no. Who the hell are you? And it's the same thing. And the most polite thing you could say about what the Americans did with Soleimani was an extrajudicial execution. It was like an illegal execution. And even if you hadn't have liked Soleimani, the idea of a foreign power unilaterally just going, oh yeah, we're going to take this guy out.
Yeah, no, that's 100% right. I kind of read some of the question I'm going to get to in a second, but well, firstly, the whole thing changed in 3 days because then the whole airplane things happened, and but that 3 days before the airplane thing happened, I'm going to talk about that period.
Yeah, okay.
Right? There's a very important thing that people need to understand when it comes to Middle East, especially between Iran and Iraq, because this name sounds similar.
Yes.
Right. The thing is, Iran and Iraq both are countries in the UN listed. The difference is that Iran is actually a nation, whereas Iraq is a few lines on the map.
It was invented after World War II.
It's invented, and you can actually see even the lines are pretty straight, like states in America.
Yes.
Or in Australia. The lines are straight because they're drawn on a map, and the way it's drawn, it's basically there are 4 different ethnicities that the lines are actually cutting through. So this country can't act as a nation.
Yeah.
There's a huge tendency for the country. It's like an unstable molecule, you know.
Yes.
As soon as it can, it wants to fall apart,
Yep.
all the atoms want to go after their own mates.
Yes.
Whereas Iran is the exact opposite. Iran has a core Persian, if you will, nation that is rooted in history for thousands of years.
Yes.
And of course, there are many, many ethnicities of different sorts.
Yes.
Some like Arabs and Turks, rather slightly different. There are also Persians are also very different. But the core, there's a very strong core, right? So in the time of peace, you would see that there are a lot of conflicts and arguments and debates and everything. Whereas when something like a foreign attempt happens, immediately the whole thing becomes one. As we saw, it happened after this assassination.
Yeah. And again, Iraq was just barely held together by an authoritarian strongman, but an invading force, even if they said we're liberators, tended to unify an opposition against it. Which
against
was,
Iraq, you mean?
I'm talking about Iraq now,
right,
yes. And it was a stunning blunder from the Americans, as far as I'm concerned. The idea that when you listen to the stuff that like Cheney and crew were saying in the lead up to the invasion, it'll be over in a couple of weeks. They'll greet us as liberators. Like, dude, you're an invading army. You need to understand that virtually nobody likes an invading army, no matter what totalitarian heel they're under. They don't tend to take kindly to an invading army.
No, stuff that happens in the war is horrible.
Yeah,
it's horrible. Even one person, when a person gets injured, it's horrible. Let alone one person being killed. Let alone many being killed, and not even appearing in the statistics.
Yeah.
Let alone like when you hear there've been soldiers that've been killing for fun. Now,
yes.
Things are like, and it's not just America. Like, war is bad. It shouldn't happen. And again, getting back to what I was saying, it shouldn't be about the details. Actually, when we civilians talk about things like this, details might be interesting for us to kind of find out what's going on. But in the core, we need to understand none of these things have to happen at all. There is absolutely no justification in 2020 for any war happen anywhere. We need to understand that. Then we have to find out, okay, what, because if we don't understand this very, very core and fundamental principle, then we will be part of what public opinion that's actually feeding the wars. If we don't understand.
Absolutely. It's a good point. Hey, I was thinking, we've been talking for a while. You've run out of water. Do you feel like another beverage?
I would, and I'd like to. Go on.
You want to explore my my cocktail making, or
Yeah.
Okay. So hey, and if you're listening to this back later, maybe you want to take a break. Maybe you want to have a drink.
Something though, I don't know where you want to go with this bit, but there are a few questions I want to.
I think we want to tee up some of the questions were about history as well.
If that fits in what you plan.
No, absolutely. Okay. No, I definitely want to address some of that stuff. There were questions about the American-backed coup and the implications of, Iran in the 20th century, essentially. And we definitely want to get to that. But we are recording this on Australia Day, 26th of January. Some Indigenous Australians call it Invasion Day. Some call it Survival Day. Some people are just completely happy calling it Australia Day. I made, just prior to recording for the podcast, I made a drink that was the colours of the Australian flag, a beverage that was red, a beverage that was white, a beverage that was blue. I was thinking of maybe even the Indigenous flag is yellow, red, and black. I could make something. Is there a drink you like, or is there the flavour you like? I could come up with something.
I'll tell you what. I have brought some fruits.
You have some fruits,
and I'd like you to experiment with it in whatever you're making for me.
I love it
for you. How about that?
Yeah,
that's a challenge for you.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, we love experimentation. Cool. So where are the fruits?
In my backpack.
Okay. It's just here, is it?
Yeah.
All right. Alexa is going to while we continue talking, he's going to grab some fruits. This is a live challenge. This is mixing it up, and we are going to come up with a live challenge. I love coming up with live challenge. So What do we have here, Alexa?
This is straight off the tree.
Straight off the tree. This is a small apple. It looks like.
Well, it's not actually. It's
What is it?
If you get a bite, it's not ripe, but this is the amount of ripeness that I like.
Oh, okay, I get you.
And
What fruit is this?
I wouldn't know the name.
Okay, Alexa has brought along mystery fruit.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I was hoping you would know that.
it looks like a little apple to
It's
me.
not an apple. It's
not-
similar to plum.
Yeah, okay. It
Might be
actually
kind of a plum.
looks halfway between an apple and a plum.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I'm going to do, although you've got a lot of them,
Yeah.
I'm going to. We'll keep going. I'm because we're recording this in my kitchen handily, so I can grab a knife. I am going to chop this up. Now, is there a particular beverage you like or a flavor you?
Oh.
It's very plum-like. Anyone who's watching this live, see, there's some quite nice
It's
colours.
amazing. Yeah. It's bloody.
It is bloody. It is bloody good.
Yeah.
To be Aussie. It's amazing. It's this incredibly red flesh.
It's
Okay.
actually really good. If you like not ripe fruits, that's perfect.
What I am going to do, I'm chopping this up a little bit.
Should angry be welding a sharp item? That's one question.
I had one drink. Okay, I'm fine.
Someone says I have a plum tree and it's usually perfectly ripe on Australia Day. It's totally not ripe. Yeah, okay, that's interesting.
I'm again showing people on the live stream. It's very beautiful.
Yeah, not these types, but I know the types that kind of are a bit kind of stretched. They normally are absolutely ripe. Chinese pear. Someone guessed that we already made. Mystery fruit. Love IY. What does that mean?
I don't know.
He or she is either a teenager or have teenagers.
I love you. I don't know.
Love IY. So if
Lovely.
alternative Adele, if you can clarify what that means, that would be good.
Okay, what I am doing is crushing this fruit a bit. It's known as muddling, to just juice it a bit, get some flavor out. Now, in terms of the beverage we're going to mix this with, Alexa, is there anything you like?
I'll leave it to you. Just
okay.
Yeah. Maybe don't tell me the details, and maybe I just.
Okay,
yeah.
Okay. Alexa's going for the surprise.
Yeah.
I like the adventurousness.
And also, kind of taste the fruit a bit, because I want you to choose things based on the taste that it
All right,
has.
I'm going to have a little taste of the fruit.
I'm not leaving you with any excuse that you might come up with later. RIL 33Y, you asked the question before. Are you still with us? Because I'm going to answer that.
You're going to go into a bit of the history now?
Yeah, I'm
you run with that while I make a drink.
Yeah, sure.
You talk a bit of history.
So alternative Adele says, I've drunk a little bit of wine. It was it was a random hit instead of that's fair enough. I learned recently about yeet. Do you know what yeeting means?
Yeeting basically means throwing.
I think you can use it for anything.
Yeah, it's a pretty flexible word.
But that's the base. Yeah.
Yeet. I've yeeted some fruit into my mixing glass.
Yeah, yeet the hell out of it. Okay, so Riley, I'm waiting for you to respond so I can answer your question. And Safa said, where's the name from? I'm curious. Don't forget about that oil tanker last June. The one that was, I heard about it.
That was a whole thing where we never really knew for sure who actually attacked the oil tanker and what exactly was happening there.
These are interesting things these days when even in such a big level, it's not clear what's going on.
Yes.
Like when the Malaysian
the plane that disappeared.
The plane disappeared. Or in the Trump thing when they can't find evidence of text messages and calls, even though NSA kind of already has everything.
Yes.
And a few other confusions for me too that I can't remember, but yeah, you would think at that level things are very, very clear. They were just assholes on a power trip. They had no concept of reality. Yeeting is a thing you don't get, so you're not alone. Alternative Adele. All right, so make the questions. So musical aviator. Is this person a regular?
Musical aviator?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So,
Likes doing flight sim stuff, does musical aviator.
flights.
Flight simulator.
Flight simulators, right?
Yeah.
Interesting. So George W. Bush said, "Will be greeted as liberators." Yeah. Some of these interviews and kind of footage and videos from early 2000s, when you look at
Yes.
it's just amazing. You know.
Oh, it's disconnected from reality.
Yeah. When someone's yeah, maybe there wasn't a mass destruction weapons, but we're gonna bring them democracy.
Yes.
Kind of thing, and
yes.
that's right in the middle of the act.
Yeah.
And then you knowing what exactly the whole story led to, it's fascinating to watch. Just don't invade countries and start ways to steal resources. It's not a hard concept. That's correct. Yep. Can supreme leader overrule the president? In Iran, they can, similar to what the Queen can for Australia and the UK. And in Australia, it happened in 70s, I guess.
When the government was sacked on November 11th, 1975.
75.
1975.
And I've heard that was kind of a gamble, but it worked out well.
Yeah,
that's what I've heard.
It was a very fraught time. There were a lot of moving parts involved.
So we've got someone joined us. Welcome, and thanks guys for sticking around. I'm a guest, but I feel like recognizing this and saying thank you. So Oil for USA. There's well, again, I'm just throwing out random things that I've noticed, but it's not just oil. It's also gas.
Yes.
There is also gas in this whole chess game that plays a role, I imagine, or I believe, in the way everything is happening. So the export of gas is one of the main pillars of Russian economy, export to Europe. And there is a massive gas repository. Would you say gas repository?
Yeah. I think that's a reasonable.
Yeah, or deposit. Yeah, gas repository where Qatar is, and Saudi Arabia, which they're friend. And this is how I trace back the Saudi-American friendship, because they have a common thing.
Yeah.
So once the whole Middle East is cleared, Saudi and Qatar gets their money by exporting oil, and US gets what they want, which is weakening Russian economy. So they have a, what do they say? When two random parties have alignment, some sort of complementary
synergy.
Yeah. That gets them to work together, even though they don't even fit. Yeah, even the image of the leaders together, it's so funny, let alone the whole ideologies of the two countries.
All right.
How the Iraq War happened? Which Iraq War? There are 3 Iraq War. There was one US Iraq War, if you're talking about.
Oh, yes.
Okay. So this guy that I wanted to answer got back. The proxies that have been running around killing in the Middle East are Iranian-backed proxies. Should we bomb the soldiers? Yeah, it's very complicated. What I said personally was that there should be absolutely no war, whether it's Iran, Iraq, US from the other side of the planet. There should be no one. And if all the people basically understand it and don't get involved in the politics, I don't think it would happen. The answer to the question, it's not okay for Iranians either. Definitely not. Thank you so much.
So this is a little invention. Have a sip and tell me what you think of that.
Scotch.
What is? Are you on board? I like it.
Is it a thing you like patenting?
I'm inventing my own drinks.
Good.
Yeah. So this is
amazing.
The base of this one was the fruit Alexa brought in. I squooshed some of that in the bottom, and then there's some rum, the Australian macadamia nut liqueur. So there's a little nutty flavor. So it's fruity and nutty and rummy, basically.
We've got Mofo. I won't say his name. It's Brian.
Yeah, that's
Because he
Brian.
goes by both. Yeah.
Yes. No, because
Yeah.
Brian's been on videos on my channel
That's
as well.
cool. Yeah. Welcome, Brian, and thanks by the way for making this particular one happen, because we talked about this interview on Friday
Yes.
because Brian had put together. the
Brian
event.
put together an event we went to on
Yeah.
Friday night.
Shout out to Brian.
Shout out to Brian. So this is like this is our halftime over. We've got our little beverage here. So I don't know if someone wants to come up with a name. This was an unknown but extremely blood red fruit, some plum relative, and rum and macadamia basically. So, and I know I feel like calling it Alexa's surprise or something because you brought the fruit was a surprise. I didn't know you were bringing it.
Yeah, Alexa's surprise.
Yep. Okay.
That's what it is.
So this drink is officially Alexa's surprise.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, it's for personal use. It's free. It's Creative Commons.
Yes, but any commercial enterprise
Yeah.
will have to pay us for it.
Yeah, or you gotta contact us and we'll tell you what happens then. Yeah.
But yeah, so I okay for the real details for people who want to know. Obviously, I made 2 drinks, so it's about for each of us. There was half a shot of spiced rum, half a shot of black rum, half a shot of the macadamia nut liqueur, and the mystery fruit, the surprise fruit that the name comes from. And I did put a little bit of sugar syrup in there because the fruit has a very nice sort of sour tart edge to it.
You know what?
And I was just balancing it.
If this whole thing takes off, we may be able to actually even sell the seeds.
Yes.
Because even though you find out what kind of fruit, it wouldn't be this.
Yes.
So that's also another kind of stream of income to make this podcast self-sustaining. Brian is throwing a bombshell to talk about.
Brian's talking about the coronavirus. We had a big talk about the coronavirus earlier.
Did you?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Musical Aviator is suggesting this is another rum rebellion drink because rum, you get Australian rums, Australian macadamia, and this is an Australian fruit. Not necessarily native to Australia, but it's a fruit grown in Australia. But yeah, this drink is officially Alexa's surprise. All right, so I think we've had a little bit of a halftime break here.
Yeah.
I want to get back into the focus stuff. So we've been talking about the here and now, the very recent history.
Oh, yeah.
And we were asked about the slightly further back history, the 20th century history. And we do know, like, essentially, the US was very big into interfering with Iran and installing particular regimes that ended up leading to the revolution. How well versed are you in the 20th century history?
How well?
How much do you know about, like, the American intervention and the different regimes that were in Iran in the 20th century?
This is easy because I can actually tell you everything I know as well in one sentence.
Definitely. Go
Not
for
only how much I know.
Okay.
Yeah. So what I know, so we were told in our history books growing up in the Islamic Republic that there was a coup that overthrew our democratic government in a few decades ago, which I can't. That's Mossadegh.
Yes.
That's 1950s, where alternative. I think the alternative Adel asked. So that's what we were told.
Yes.
And growing up in Iran, if you're a critically thinker mind, you don't really take any information as is. You just listen to everything, but you'd always assume that it might actually be a fiction, right? Part of a narrative. You don't know, right? But one of the surprises that I had was I was actually in Australia here, 2016, I remember, and there was under Trump administration. 2017 would have been then. It was under Trump that there was a document that came out of classification after 60 years period that actually detailed FBI's coup in Iran to overthrow the actual democratically elected government and place a what would you call a monarch?
Yeah, the Shah.
The Shah.
Yeah.
Which is, I believe, the father of the Shah that kind of ended up being withdrawn at the revolution. So that's as much as I know. And that was an eye-opener for me.
Yeah.
Hearing that all the things that we were told was actually true in this case. And we used to have So this is also, sorry, this is different from the question you asked, but when George W. Bush video, when I watch it, that says we're going to bring democracy to Iraq by killing them, this is what kind of fascinates me, the fact that this is the very nation that actually overthrew a already democratic nation in the same region.
Yes.
Which is an absolute hypocrisy.
Yeah.
And
definitely.
this is a failure for humanity that a few decades later, this very same nation can actually attack a country in the same region with such a funny message.
Yeah.
So there are things fundamentally out of place in the way we our civilization is kind of operating that allows for such a thing to happen.
Yeah. And again, my knowledge of history is not great, but I don't think anyone really contests the fact that the US geared up to overthrow a democratically elected government whose politics they didn't like, install the Shah.
It wasn't about the politics, though. Okay, so maybe this is something I know that you don't know.
Go for it, yes.
Because the story that I've heard is because Mossadegh was the person who nationalized oil of Iran.
Right.
So oil, kind of, Iran has a lot of oil, a lot of money. British Petroleum, BP now, then because they had the engineering capability to do that, they were taking the whole oil apparently. So it was Mossadegh, they then went to the Hague court, international court.
Okay.
And kind of won the case that kind of revoked the contract that British Petroleum had with Iran, which would basically give all the oil profit from Iran to the UK directly. And obviously the UK wasn't happy about that, right?
Yes.
And what happened apparently, the UK went to America, like knocked on the door and said, hey, these guys are bothering us. Can you do something about it? And the president at the time said, this is not our problem.
Okay.
And apparently, well, I don't know the name of those presidents. I should probably Carter. Either Carter or the president after him. When the president changed, the UK knocked again, said, hey, these guys are bothering us. And that president said, okay, yeah, sure, we can do something about it.
Yeah.
And that's how it happened. So it was basically for the UK, not for the US.
There was an interesting thing with that changeover of US presidents, because Carter, who was a Democrat, was a one-term president, and there was a ongoing hostage crisis in Iran.
Oh, yes,
with some Americans who were being held hostage, and Carter was unable to resolve it, and Reagan, who ran against him successfully, played up that Carter was weak because he couldn't resolve it. And then soon after Reagan came into power, resolved the hostage crisis. And what we have known since is that certain powers within the US deliberately failed to resolve the hostage crisis because they actually wanted to remove Carter from office and they supported Reagan. And they could have easily settled the hostage crisis while
gaining their own political advantage by letting the whole thing be.
If it had been resolved when Carter was in power, it would have served Carter's popularity. But by not resolving it, it served Reagan's popularity, and Reagan got elected. And again, that's not really conjecture. That's a known fact that particular hostage crisis was deliberately dragged out by people who wanted Carter to lose the election.
That's interesting to see the American side. I'll tell you this bit about the Iranian side as well.
Yep.
So apparently the whole thing, these are purely what I've heard.
Yes.
Is purely a grassroots initiative.
Yes.
That happened by students apparently at the time, university students. But because the whole thing was so political, the government had to claim it.
Right.
Because otherwise it would be...
It made them look weak.
Yeah. So this is again, I believe this is true, that this is the case, right?
Okay.
And that makes it very interesting because what you see... So I don't think they would have actually wanted such a thing because it obviously worked absolutely against them.
Yes.
And then from that point, they had to make very strong statements that
Mm.
they didn't have to make prior to that. So then American consulate was obviously cancelled, and then
Yep.
everything became difficult for Iran to do internationally
Mm.
because there was no American consulate
Yep.
in Iran to resolve anything, and all the sanctions kind of followed and everything. So it wasn't a move from Iranian. It wasn't a strategic move. It was something that apparently they had to deal with, basically.
Right.
Yeah, this is from this side.
Okay. Yes.
Which is political, but also was interesting to hear the American side.
Okay.
The political component into that.
Yeah. Because that is an interesting thing there that people basically said, "Oh yeah, that was a huge scam that the people in various." And I think the implications were it was the CIA didn't particularly like them. This has just reminded me of another thing I've heard going back to Soleimani, who was recently assassinated. One of the bits of talk that's going on, because Soleimani's been a power broker for so long, there was talk that he and the Iranian powers in general were right on the verge of having a much better relationship with the US, because you had Iranian troops fighting with American troops in some of the theaters there in the Middle East. And then George W. Bush came up with the concept axis of evil. I don't know if you remember. He cited North Korea, Iran, and Iraq as being some sort of evil cabal, when those three countries didn't like each other and did nothing together. He basically completely fabricated this idea that it was this, coalition of bad guys. And
what was the third one?
It was Iran, Iraq, and North Korea.
Iraq as well?
Yeah, it was Iran, Iraq, North Korea.
Here's when it comes to manipulation, right? This is what I find fascinating.
Yeah.
Because in Australia, when I talk to people, like 99 out of 100 people are like, they like Iran, Persian, whatever, right?
Yes.
But you get one person who repeats what the propaganda says, right?
Yes.
Iran is evil, or Iranians are terrible, whatever, right?
Yeah.
But that's what interesting for me is that I ask one question and they can't even follow. I said, what is bad about them?
Yes.
What is bad about Iran, right? And they don't even know. This is such a horrible country, apparently axis of evil.
Yes.
Right? But what does it do? Like, as an Iran, I don't even know. Yep. What has Iran done? I don't even know.
But even tie it back to this one guy, Soleimani, when all the media was like, oh yeah, he was the worst guy. He was bad.
Yeah.
Okay, can you please tell me a specific thing he's done that's bad? It's like, okay, he was a military commander. Can you say some military commanders, yes, would launch operations that would kill people because that's what happens in military operations. But you, unless he was like engaging in, genocide or abuse of civilians or something, but just like, oh, he killed American troops. It's
like on that point,
yeah.
right? These operations are happening where the whole stability of region is at stake, and it directly impacts Iran. Directly.
Absolutely.
Right? So this is one. Secondly, it may actually be the case that Iran's doing some nasty things, but why not anybody talking about Turkey?
Oh,
what they're doing with Kurds, right?
Yes.
So that's brighter than light. It's obviously it's happening. Why no one's talking about it?
Well,
if you want to assassinate some generals, it's got to be Turkey. I'm not saying you should, but this is where it's selective, kind of being selective. Even if it's true, it's being selective. And like what you said, we don't even know what's going on.
Yeah. Oh, and it's because the US has air bases in Turkey that they rely on really heavily. Mm-hmm. So they can't afford to piss them off. You know what you made me think of? A line from a recent James Bond movie.
Right.
Because they brought in the CIA. Again, James Bond fans will remember his CIA contact was always a guy called Felix Leiter.
Okay.
And in all the old Bond films, every time Felix Leiter came up, it was a different actor, which suggested Felix Leiter wasn't one person.
Oh, right, interesting.
It was the CIA liaison, which is called,
Yeah.
including it was a black guy once. And in the most recent Daniel Craig Bond films, Felix Leiter was a black guy again. And there was one bit where they were talking about that they were going to help a supremely bad guy because it helped some of their geopolitical engineering. And Felix Leiter says to another CIA agent, what are we even doing helping this guy? You know, like he murders people. And the other CIA agent says really cynically, like, yeah, we should only help nice people.
Right.
And you're sitting there going, maybe you should only help nice people. Because American foreign policy has had a few fairly serious misadventures that were based on ideology that ended up helping really, really quite bad people.
What did I do? Sorry. I want to reply to alternative.
We're looking at the live stream and Alexa's.
I want to reply.
What are we doing? No, I'm hiding it. Sorry.
I didn't even know you can do that. That's
that's a neat thing. On our live stream, we can make comments come up on the video.
Bye, Adele.
Yeah, we have a lot of people. The fun thing about the internet, again, broadcasting from Australia, the majority of the audience tends to be Australian. There may be like Adele who says she's been up since she got up at 5:30 on Australia Day for a smoking ceremony. I also get some insomniac people from the Northern Hemisphere. It's quite funny. Like I do the live streams in the evening in Australia.
It will be 3 a.m. or something.
Oh, between 3 and 6 a.m. I'll get people in the Northern Hemisphere just going, yeah, I can't sleep and you were on, so I'm joining. So again, if you watch it back
it's
later,
the best way to stay up for them, actually.
You can watch it or listen to it whenever. But the live streams are fun because often you get people who are just like, I'm in a radically different time zone to you, but I'm suffering. Either I've been on night shift or I'm suffering from insomnia, so you're keeping me company, which is always fun. Now, look, I do see there are people bringing up in the chat saying that Soleimani is responsible for orchestrating terrorist attacks. Now, personally, my belief is there is no evidence whatsoever to support that. I think it is possibly true that power brokers in Iran did support some people who did bad things. I mean, I know for a fact they support the Syrian regime who've done terrible things within their own borders.
There's something I want to bring up to really. Firstly, thank you so much for kind of challenging this, because I always like to know about my biases, which everyone does have, and I do have too.
Absolutely.
I want to remind that the problem is that what I say again, I repeat, none of these things should happen at all. No American soldier needs to be killed anywhere either.
Yes.
Right? I'm not saying I'm an Iranian. I because of my bias, my attention goes towards when an Iranian is kind of threatened or in danger. Yes. But no one should be hit at all. And there's no reason where we are in 2020 in terms of access to information and knowledge and science and communication. There's no reason for any of these conflicts. However, it's important to understand what politics does to us, because while the media brings up the terrible things that Soleimani has done, which it's important to be actually investigated. But at the same time, we have to balance it with the fact that there's absolute silence about what's happening in Yemen.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So the thing is, those are also people, and who, you know what I'm saying? So
yes.
The other thing that media does is kind of portraying the idea of different types of human and detaching us from each other, and to get us kind of not feel really about what happens to the other type of human. Yes. And this is really dangerous, because if you don't consciously, actively think about it, it actually can happen to you, where you will think, there was a bomb in a school in Pakistan, like it's a thing that happens there. Who cares? it's not it shouldn't happen anywhere.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if it's in Pakistan, Bangladesh, or state in America or in Paris. There should be nothing anywhere in the world. So it's important to also recognize what is fed to us from media. And I'm not saying it's wrong, but one of the ways that manipulation happens is not by telling us the lie, it's by telling us selective truth, which makes it a lie. Because it changes the way we shape the truth ourselves. So that's something we gotta be careful about. So if you're gonna add something while I'm reading.
Yeah, no, it's okay. And look, we're getting feedback saying like, it's not just Western nations who do bad things, which is absolutely true. Absolutely true. And we all need to be very conscious about what filters we see things through and our own blind spots. And I try to work very hard at that. I'm sure I fail. This is it's related, but it's sort of completely off topic almost. I deliberately watched a bit of a quite old comedy special from a conservative American comedian called Dennis Miller. If you're unfamiliar with Dennis Miller, he fancies himself as an intellectual. He thinks he's doing intelligent comedy. He's a conservative. And this was an old special. It dated from when George W. Bush was in power.
Right.
And it was terrible. Honestly, it was terrible. It was awful. But to my mind, he was pushing political ideology, and he was saying stuff as self-defining truths, and the audience is applauding. And I was going, that's not real. That's not true. But that helped me go, that is a thing I know I do. And I think we all do. We state, when you believe something, when you believe you have evidence to back something up, you state something as a self-evident truth. And there's an implication. Everyone who agrees with me is smart. Everyone who disagrees with me is stupid.
Yeah.
And watching this guy make a bunch of points that I fundamentally disagreed with, and he wasn't backing any of them up, he was just stating them as self-evident truths, made me very conscious of, I know I do this. I know I state things as self-evident truths, and I believe they're true, but someone who disagrees with me will just see me saying this stuff with like no backup and go, he's an idiot. He doesn't know what he's talking about. So I actually found it almost therapeutic to watch this guy, because I was watching him going, oh, you're full of crap. That's not real. And then realizing I probably say stuff all the time that other people interpret exactly the same way. And I think that it's beholden on all of us to remember that. While, again, we tried to stress the whole time I was talking here with Alexa, I wasn't bringing Alexa in as an objective expert on anything. These were all personal stories. These were all from a very personal point of view, your own, and what conversations you'd had with other people. Because I think it's important to come back to that occasion. Like, we can, like, people could say Soleimani was a bad guy. People could say, and even worse, people get this idea, Iran as some weird amorphous blob is bad, but Iran is made up of millions of individual people. America is made up of millions of individual people. Australia is made up of millions of individual people. There's even, like, I get people saying, like, wanting to pose the question, is Australia racist? And I was like, what does that even mean? What is Australia?
That's right.
Is it the dirt? Is it the what? Is it the people? And I go, but if you phrase the questions, is there a disturbing amount of racism in mainstream discourse in Australian society? I would say yes. Okay, has America done extremely dodgy things in the pursuit of their foreign policy around the world? Yes. Have bad things happened under the regime in Iran? Yes. None of that equates to America is evil, Australia is evil, Iran is evil, because those things don't make sense.
Yeah.
Everything's made up of people. Good people, bad people, indifferent people, good people making bad decisions, good people making good decisions. And what is good for one people. I want to come back to the thing you say, like, again, the Iraq invasion, you had the Cheney's, etc., saying, like, we're going to bring them democracy. Not everyone in the world views democracy as the best system.
That's also a good point. Yeah.
Culturally, it doesn't fit as well. Personally, I believe democracy, and again, there are varying forms of democracy, but broadly, I think democracy is the best system. But I don't speak for everyone in the world.
Yeah. And there has been cases where the whole kind of system is turned into democracy, which hasn't actually worked.
Yeah.
Only then people have realized in that system, democracy in the way it's understood globally, it wouldn't have worked.
Yeah, I know. Again, we're looking at some of the comments we're getting live, and our friend Brian is saying that sort of nuance and subtlety doesn't fit in something like the word limit in Twitter or the headline of a tabloid newspaper. And that is absolutely right. And this is, again, on social media, I tend to get a little bit annoyed at people who share news articles with misleading headlines, because they say, you have to understand, most people only look at the headline. They don't even read the article.
I actually give you an example that I spotted that had manipulated me.
Yeah.
It is a sad story. Spoiler, not the spoiler, warning.
Yep, sad story.
Yeah, so there was a girl, unfortunately, kind of got stabbed to death in Brunswick. It's a suburb in Melbourne.
Yes.
That was 2 years ago.
Yes.
So I heard that news and was really feeling sorry, because Brunswick is one of my favorite suburbs. I've lived there. Then what happened a few days after that, I saw this news by ABC, the title again, because I didn't have time to read it or whatever. I just saw the title that was saying the father of the murdered student is flying back to Israel. That was the title.
Yes.
It's, yeah, that's sad. So that was an Israeli student. That's what I get it subconsciously. I didn't even think about it. That's what I get it. But then later I realized that person, the student, was Palestinian and she was Arab.
Yes, she was a Palestinian.
So
Arab,
ABC hadn't said anything wrong, right? But the title was saying,
did live in Israel. Yes.
Yeah, the flight would go to Israel, but it has an implication that you don't have enough time to process. You just on my mind concluded that that girl was Israeli, right?
Yes.
Whereas it was the exact.
Yeah, she's actually a Palestinian.
Which actually can be 100% different, 180 degrees different from. What I'm saying is that these are all these kind of things. That was the one that I spotted myself, that I can actually think about something by reading a title that's the exact opposite. So sometimes not reading titles is even better. You'll stay more informed if you don't follow news sometimes.
Yeah.
And these things happen to us a lot of time.
Absolutely. And
which is
the key thing I've tried to communicate to people on social media is what the studies have shown. If a headline triggers an incredibly strong response in you, whether that's negative or positive, don't trust it. If your initial reaction to a headline is very strong,
if it's playing with your emotion, basically, right? Okay,
so don't trust it.
Yeah, so it's safer to assume that there's some sort of agenda behind the title.
Yes,
that's a very good. Yeah, that's a very good technique.
And it's really hard to remember, but when your initial impulse to react to something is very strong, it probably isn't to be trusted. And there were just a couple of stories recently. So someone promoted this 100% completely false story. Like we were saying, bushfires have been happening in Australia, and they're very traumatic. They're awful. And there's this video which somebody described as, on their Twitter bio, they described themselves as a journalist for some ecological outlet, and there was this little bit of video of a fox suckling some little animals that clearly aren't foxes.
I saw your tweet about that.
Yeah, and
go on.
it was claiming that they were suckling koalas after the bushfire. Complete lie. Absolutely. You just look at it, those are not koalas.
Where
they were apes. It was really from some weird
right.
zoo somewhere had these baby apes being suckled by a fox, which is weird as hell. But again, this person who purported to be a journalist was absolutely fabricating. So, and everyone was going, "Oh, heartwarming! The fox helping."
So it wasn't even from Australia. Is that what you're saying? It was in a zoo.
The original video was not from Australia. No.
Wow.
Because I did some reverse searching and
someone just found a video. Oh, cool! So I can
As a fox clearly suckling things that aren't foxes, and they said they were koalas, and every Australian's going, "Those are not koalas." And I searched a bit, and I found the original video is from some weird zoo where, for whatever reason, they had baby apes being suckled by a fox. So certainly very weird, but nothing to do with the bushfires.
And I can see. So there's a tweet, and you see it, and you've got a few seconds. You emotionally kind of hit by it.
Yeah.
And it just takes you one tap to retweet.
Yeah.
And and also the other person who sees 200 retweets is kind of assumes that these stories must be legit.
Yes.
Doesn't even give it a moment of reckoning.
Yes.
To think about it.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah, and there was another one that I don't know the truth of yet, but is being put around. 13-year-old girl impregnated by a 10-year-old boy. And my initial impulse was bullshit. And people go, "Oh, this is right." No, bullshit. It's too emotionally triggering. And then I looked up the story, and it was going, claimed a 13-year-old Russian girl is saying a 10-year-old boy. And I go, okay, this is untraceable. This is in a part of the world where we'll never get the truth. I said, the likelihood of this being untrue is incredibly high. But people just saw this really dramatic, emotive headline, 13-year-old impregnated by 10-year-old, and started sharing.
I have a random idea to solve fake news.
Oh, go for it.
Yeah.
Solve fake news.
Yeah, this is my second solution to fake news, by the way. If we introduce a particular fine or tax, whatever you want to call it, right?
Yes.
If you are the one who's come up with a title, in your mind, genius title that would totally grab clickbait, whatever.
Good clickbait title, yes.
Right? And it turns out to be kind of false thing.
Yes.
So you got to pay, or your organization under which you've published that, you got to pay per number of retweets in certain types of forms.
Yes.
You got to pay for it.
Ah, okay.
Right. And then organizations like media would need to insure themselves, go to insurance.
Yes.
Because you're going to be sued.
Yes.
Every now and then a junior like a journalist is going to do a clickbait title.
Yeah.
It's going to go viral and going to turn out to be false. Right? So if there was such a thing introduced, right, there should be no objection from anybody.
Yeah.
Because they would say, well, we don't do that. Why would you object?
We wouldn't do anything untrue.
We wouldn't like put a title that is untrue, right? we wouldn't find a video from a zoo. Or the other photo, if you know the shell photo where the S is dropped, it says hell.
Yes.
Right, which was in Greece apparently 10 years ago. Now it's kind of said this is Australia.
Yes.
So the very first one who's actually done this, which is traceable, by the way, I'm a software person. So if the very first person is actually accountable to pay fine based on all the social retweets and whatever financially. Yeah, that's a good one. That might actually
$1 for every retweet for a false bit of news.
The reason I'm excited about this is because if you introduce such a bill, it should face no objection.
Yep.
Right.
That's good. Yeah. If you're telling the truth, you have nothing to fear.
Because if you're objecting, there's something wrong with this. So you can't even know. And actually, you can get like ABC, SBS to actually advocate for this.
Yes.
And that would make it harder for others not to advocate for it or object it. And then this may actually be passed. And then we can collect all the money by the fake news.
Yes.
Once it's turned out to be fake.
Yes.
So all our retweets would actually either be spreading the truth, or at one point turn into dollars.
Yeah.
You know?
Put a bit more weight on people to tell the truth. I like it. I think that's a good point. That's the solution for fake news. I'm going to round out the podcast there. Thank everyone who's listened to this.
Right.
And yeah, I hope with this personal view that maybe has rounded out your worldview a little. Alexa, do you want to promote anything before we round out the podcast, social media or events or whatnot?
Yes. Like this Riley.
Don't worry so much about that. I'm talking about you,
Yes.
you personally.
Are
there any events or social media or anything
his
you want
last
to promote?
comment
Yes.
reminded me of something that I would have wanted to promote. It's good that you ask at the same time. So we have been working on a project to help with the bushfire situation.
Yes.
It's a technology solution that creates a complementary data set that will help hopefully with detecting bushfires earlier.
Yes.
It's called Flying Fox Network.
Mm-hmm.
Flyingfox.network. That's the domain name for it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the website, flyingfox.network.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been doing it like a non-for-profit for public innovation thing. And that's something I like to promote because it's something that everyone can participate. It's a device that you put on your car if you like. You don't have to. But the data would help basically detecting the bushfire faster than
so that's an interesting thing.
It may save some headache from some people or even some lives. You don't know.
Yeah, well, and that's always a good thing.
Yeah.
And for myself personally, if you're listening and want to know more about me, I think that's a bit weird, but you can find me by searching Angry Aussie on any social media, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. I hope you look after yourselves. Hope you enjoyed this conversation and hope you come back, subscribe to this podcast and hear some more sometime soon. But bye for now. All right, so we're still live. That was just where I'm leaving the podcast.
Okay, good.
Okay, Riley, I just want to point out you perpetuated a complete and utter lie in that a large number of people have been charged with arson and deliberately lighting bushfires.
So can you make
it is an absolute categorical lie. It is 1,000% untrue. There have been a number of people who've been charged with breaching total...
Can I just say something?
Yep, sorry.
Because what you said about Riley, for a non-native, it may have understood as if he's lying.
No, I'm not saying he's lying. I'm saying...
clarify that, Riley's making actually a lot of good comments here.
Yeah.
That's good, So,
but you have repeated a very dangerous lie.
Okay, go on.
And you didn't start this. You're repeating. A number of people have been charged with deliberately lighting bushfires. It's like 20 odd people. This, unfortunately, happens every fire season. It's fucked. And over 100 people have been charged with offences that relate to not observing total fire ban rules. And this comes down to as simple as discarding a cigarette, a lit cigarette, or throwing away the match after you're lighting it, or having a campfire in a zone where there's a total fire ban. And certain conservative media outlets have been deliberately lying and saying that these are all arson and deliberately lighting bushfires. That is an absolute categorical lie. No grey area whatsoever. 20 odd people have been charged with actual arson offences, as in they believe those people were deliberately trying to start bushfires. Those people are obviously shit and deserve to be prosecuted. But the thing is, a total fire ban is a total fire ban. And carelessly throwing away a lit cigarette or the match that you use to light a cigarette, or having a campfire at a campsite or a barbecue, those are all breaches of total fire ban rules. And that's what 90% of these charges have been. 90% of these charges have been people carelessly or stupidly breaching total fire ban rules. To say those people have been charged with arson, with lighting bushfires, it's not a mistake. It is a deliberate and calculated lie. It's very important to understand that. The media outlets who've perpetrated this know they are lying. They choose to lie. They choose to keep saying the lie. It is a lie. It is absolutely false. And yes, and this ridiculous fucking equivocation that I've seen conservative politicians saying, like, oh, climate change didn't light the bushfires. No, climate change did not light the bushfires. It didn't. Climate change created the environments that made the bushfires more likely, made the fire season start earlier, make the fire season last longer, and make it likely that the fires are more intense. That's what climate change did. That's why we're seeing what we're seeing. But the intensity of the fires is a huge fucking warning to us about the implications of climate change, and we'd be fucking idiots to ignore it. But it is really important to remember that the idea of saying these fires are caused by arson is a premeditated lie. It's not a misunderstanding of the facts. It's not a selective view of the facts. The media outlets and politicians who say this know they are lying, and they continue to perpetuate this lie. It is a lie. Point blank, absolute fucking bullshit. And I really want to make that absolutely clear. You need to stop saying that because it's a fucking lie.
Yeah, and also what the comments like Relay is making is also not incorrect. I mean, these are not mutually exclusive. That the fire itself doesn't mean climate change. I agree with that. I wouldn't draw the conclusion.
Climate change did not light the fires.
Yeah, so I don't have any stance in the climate change matter. I studied engineering myself, and I'm obsessed with the systems analysis. And I know that there are certain situations where there's a tipping point, and all of a sudden you see a major thing, whereas the whole conditions existed, it just hit the tipping point, and you just see the manifestation, or what's a good way of saying it? Of a pre-existing condition. So yeah, the drawing the conclusion of climate change from the bushfires itself is not accurate at all. So I agree with Rolly in that. Yeah. But you can also do the reverse.
That's a good one, Brian, a force multiplier. And this is what we are in danger of seeing in the environment now. Rising temperatures, melt glaciers, release methane that's been stored under the ice for millennia, which is a greenhouse gas, which accelerates climate change.
Yeah, okay. Those kind of positive feedback, which
is
not a good thing. But
accelerated feedback loops. So
do you know what IOD plus SAM is? Like
No, I'm not sure what you mean, Miss Foxification. You said we've had IOD plus SAM before. I don't know what those acronyms mean. And yes, obviously we have bushfires every year, and obviously throughout history we've had critical, devastating fires. But what we have literally never had before is constantly burning fires for 3, 4, 5 months. That has never happened. And we are only halfway through the fire season now. The next couple of months scare the shit out of me. February and March are often the worst for fires because it's the end of summer when stuff has really dried out.
Right. So we haven't even started the season yet.
The fire season has traditionally started, I don't know, somewhere around November. Bad bushfires started in September last year, but they've burnt constantly. Like the really bad fires like Ash Wednesday, Black Saturday, etc., they were fires that built up, and then they had one catastrophic day where they caused a huge amount of devastation in one day. And we haven't had that this summer. What we have had is constantly burning fires, which is something we've never seen before.
While you're reading the comments, I want to say something to Fox for Fate. I see in I always kind of tend to be quiet. My observation is the climate change passionate people or activists doing a disfavor of not listening when someone is bringing up an argument, because it turns other people into, like, it radicalizes people. If you don't listen to because you shouldn't also assume that you're correct, because if you are correct, you can listen and you have something to say. If you don't have something to say, you can also go and study, either come back with a better answer next opportunity or learn something new. But what I've noticed is people start kind of fighting. These are not things we should fight about. I understand where the emotion comes from. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. This is my observation. If you listen, a lot of people who would deny it, I don't even know what is right or wrong, wouldn't necessarily say I'm denying. They would just talk about their point of view. But since they're always being attacked generally, they have to take this strong stance of it doesn't exist, it's bullshit, whatever. We've made those people to have a strong opinion, I would say. So this is just my observation. I thought I'd put it out there.
Yeah, and
ease out the debates and conversations.
And a point I've made before on live streams, and I was kind of half joking, but half telling the truth, is like, I get with a lot of conservative people, you've put up with annoying hippies for decades, and now scientists are saying what the annoying hippies have been saying.
Right, okay.
And you go, no, hippies are annoying and bullshit. So if scientists are saying the same thing that annoying hippies said, that's bullshit too. And I get, I get the impulse because the hippies really annoyed you, and like I said, they made it personal, and they criticized you personally, and you've got a natural
and
reaction.
It was easy to dismiss them.
But now scientists are literally saying exactly what the hippies said, and so there's an impulse to dismiss the scientists in the same way that they dismiss the hippies. And I understand that impulse, but you're wrong. It's and it's hard to admit sometimes that your view hasn't been objective, that it's been colored by various things. People like to think they're rational, and we're not always. We all fall into impulsive,
especially if you've binded it to your identity, either consciously or subconsciously, then it's more difficult to kind of revisit the opinions or your stance, basically.
Yes.
If you're attached to your identity, if you've denied it or promoted something or whatever, and over time you're known as that, that's...
Safa's asking, did scientists say this amount of fires would be happening 10 years more? One of the key research papers in Australia by a guy called Russ Garnow 30 years ago, and it's almost creepy how accurately he predicted. He said, like, fire seasons are going to get longer and more intense and more destructive, and his report actually said this impact should be noticeable by 2020.
Oh, right.
And it's really disconcerting.
What is that? When is that?
Like 30 years ago. The Garnow report was from like 30 years ago. And the initial reports into human-caused climate change, because of the amount of carbon we're putting in the air, they date back 100 years. Scientists going, after the Industrial Revolution, going, I think I can see some really bad indicators that if we continue to pump all this stuff into the atmosphere, that's going to have a really radical effect on the environment. But certainly since the 1980s, scientists have been ringing alarm bells and going, yo, we've been taking measurements and this is bad. What's happened since the Industrial Revolution is bad, and it's going to get worse. So we've had really solid warnings since the 1980s, but scientists have known for like more than 100 years that this is probably a problem. But we've had really solid warnings since the 1980s.
I have a friend, I think he's 7 years old or something, and he was telling me the other day, these are things that we were actually taught in a school in 50s or 60s or whatever that was. That was fascinating for me.
It's kind of like...
So it's kind of gone out of the education system over time instead of being more enforced.
It's kind of like the tobacco industry knew that tobacco was killing people and spent decades actively suppressing the research that showed cigarettes were killing people.
Here's the thing, there's countless examples of
the fossil fuel industries have known since the 60s. like, oh, we're contributing to this really badly. We should probably keep this out of the public eye or they'll shut us down.
The same industry related, the vehicle cars, like America, kind of over time getting rid of rail system, replacing with cars.
Okay, I'm just going to point out, Riley, you are spouting another complete lie. The idea that people talked about climate cooling is a complete lie. In the 1970s, there was a concern about chlorofluorocarbons that were in a lot of aerosol things, that if they continued to be released in the atmosphere, they could cause global cooling. 2 points. We got rid of chlorofluorocarbons, so the problem was there. Second, there was never an overwhelming scientific consensus of it. So again, what you're saying is a direct, complete lie. You are spouting a direct, complete lie.
Challenge for you, not having a consensus in the scientific community, does it mean anything necessarily?
Yes and no, because what it is the climate scientists have been publishing findings for 50 years that they've...
Not in this case, in general.
In general, look, what we have found repeatedly is you need to keep examining it.
Mm-hmm.
If someone puts something out, makes a good case, and you go, that looks pretty cool,
Mm-hmm.
if you just accept that as rock solid truth, you're probably making a mistake. What you need to keep doing
Mm-hmm.
is keep questioning it.
Yeah.
Keep looking for more evidence. Like, can I replicate that study? Can I replicate that result? And the more times you validate that, the more solid it is. And the scientific community has made multiple mistakes in that taking something off a single study and saying, whoa, look at that.
Mm-hmm.
We know something now. And then it's been accepted for a while. And then maybe 10, 20 years later, someone's tried to replicate the study and just gone, I don't get the same results. I can't get that result that person said.
Or you bring up another aspect that kind of invalidates the whole process, maybe.
Well, the thing is, the scientific process doesn't stop. And the thing with climate science is hundreds and hundreds of studies have shown, not exactly, but they've validated each other. And there are essentially no reputable studies that invalidate the climate.
So there's a strong consensus.
Yeah.
That's what
if you wanted to be the most famous and revered scientist in the world, disprove the idea that we're facing a climate catastrophe. Because first, everyone would be so fucking happy if you disproved it, because then we wouldn't worry we're all going to die.
That's right, yeah.
But you would be the most revered, you wouldn't be shut down, you would be the most revered scientist in the world if you could show that this wasn't happening. And
so there's a strong incentive to disprove it.
Look, Riley, you are right on the edge of going bye-byes forever. Are you a liar? You are repeating direct, responsible, demonstrable lies. The names of this dude. You know what? Fuck off. You're boring.
No, don't do that. I don't think that's what he means, though.
No, look at what he's saying.
It's a misunderstanding. I think.
No, he is a right-wing fucking troll.
Might be.
He is lying. He is repeating lies. He's a worthless, shit-eating, right-wing fucking troll, and we've given him far too much leeway. He's a moron and a liar and a worthless fucking shit-eating inbred cunt.
No.
And I just want him to hear that and get fucked.
Why black?
Because I have to put up with people all the time. No, he was just he was getting rude and obnoxious, and he was lying.
Was he?
Yep. He was being abusive and he was lying.
You're the host, so
I'm pretty brutal. Brutal. Only killing off one person is really mild for me.
And I don't think you have done any tonight, so that was probably
that's it. No, he was a liar and a fucking troll.
He had strong opinions.
No, it's just he was pushing the most stupid, obvious, pathetic lies of climate denialism. And it's not just an opinion. He was wrong and he was pushing lies. And he was pushing the most stupid fundamental lies about climate denialism.
Right. All
Fuck
those
that
things
guy.
that can easily be
Okay, and
like if you can't
this person
yeah.
also has multiple troll accounts, and they can get fucked. As soon as another account comes up straight away arguing the same thing for someone I just blocked, I
Right.
know it's the same person.
Right.
They have multiple accounts just to cause trouble. So
I wish it was easy, you know, for known arguments, right?
Yeah.
Like this, that it was brought up and you already know all the things. I wish it was easy to kind of say this. Just go find out.
no,
But we always have to talk over it, and that's
no,
make it confusing for
that guy
everyone.
was just pushing the most pathetic and obvious lies of climate denialism, and was being an asshole and was being an abusive. So fuck him. Oh, Musical Aviator looked at me, yeah, because it was a YouTube channel that doesn't actually produce any content. That just existed to fucking troll people.
I must say, but that doesn't also mean that.
No,
if it
doesn't
was me, it
universally
would
mean
also
that.
say there's
Yeah.
no content.
Yeah. But just like we gave that guy way too much rope. We let him go on for way too long, and he was an a-hole basically. So
it's difficult to have constructive arguments because you never know what the intentions of the person behind is. I'm still giving a chance that there was a person who wanted to actually at least the intention of arguing properly. May have not known how to argue properly. That's a different story. But I wish there was a way to actually
the thing
facilitate.
That person was regurgitating the most obvious first level lies about climate change. No, scientists said global cooling was going to happen. What about that? And they were. It was the absolute base level lies about, and it's just
for someone who was actually interested would have already gone past that. If it's a kind of a video game, you would have already gone past that level.
Yeah.
So that's a very basic level. That's what it's saying.
Yeah.
So if you're in that level, this is not your place. Yeah.
And also we gave them a lot of rope. Just said, look, you can have an opinion, dude, but you are just spouting these right-wing talking points.
Yeah.
Like, okay, and he was also throwing in when we were talking about Soleimani promoted terrorism in South America. No, he fucking didn't, dude. He was a military commander. He was involved in military operations in the Middle East generally. And it was big bad ads. It was Sky News talking points. And Fox of Face saying he was doing ad hominem. It was just, we gave him way too much.
And you actually, the very first thing you said was actually very accurate of propagating, whatever the word that you used, of the existing lies. That was actually what's happening.
Yeah, it's just I've seen it too many times. And it's just, we gave him a chance to not be a dickhead, and he continued to be a dickhead. So he's gone.
In my live streams, I also get trolls, and this is a bit abstract, but I always think about how can we systematically have much more effective conversations, to make sure that good intentions end up talking and bad intentions get wiped out immediately without wasting anyone's time.
Yeah.
This is something that I'm interested in
it's
solving maybe.
All right. Well, this has gone on for longer than I normally would because we were having a good conversation.
That was good, yeah.
So I want to thank everyone who's hung out. I think a bunch of people have been here we've been here for I've been here for 3 hours. You've been here for like an hour and a half.
Probably.
And I think a lot of people in the chat have been here for like the whole 3 hours.
Yeah, I really, at least on my live stream, I always kind of recognize this.
Yeah.
People were listening. That's really amazing. And the number hasn't dropped. So good on you for running such a show. And
Line Spider, you're coming in just as I'm getting around to saying good night because we've been running for 3 hours. And I only ran that because I don't have to get up tomorrow because tomorrow's a public holiday.
That's true, yeah. Monday in Australia.
Yeah, so I get to sleep in tomorrow. So thanks again, Alexa, for coming in.
No problem. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
And anyone, who's not subscribed to the podcast, do it. You can find Angry Aussie podcast it's on like the Apple podcast thing or on the Wooshka network. But I'm sure if you're here, And where's the chopping board, Abby? Oh my God. Okay, I'm going to show this video. I'll get it up because it was so good. I think I'll probably be able to find it easily on Facebook. Got my friend Sean Bedlam. There he is. Where's the video? That's the video. Okay. What are we doing?
Can you show them to your audience?
No, that's why did it do that? Okay, yeah, no, I can show this to the audience. I can share the screen. I'm just trying to get it up. Okay, this is the video. Okay, so as a bit of background, this is a dude called Avi Yemeni, who's a right-wing shit stirrer and has convictions for violent assault on women. And he loves going to any sort of protest that progressive people at and causing trouble. And so, of course, he showed at the Invasion Day protest today, and he got arrested. And this video is just fucking gold. So watch this. This is great.
Avi Yemeni is a convicted criminal for bashing his wife. Avi Yemeni is a convicted criminal for bashing his wife. Avi Yemeni is a convicted criminal for bashing his wife. Avi Yemeni is a convicted criminal for bashing his wife. Avi Yemeni bashing his wife. Avi Yemeni is a convicted criminal for bashing his wife. So is it a chopping board or was it a knife? Did you throw a chopping board or did you throw a knife, Avi? Was it a chopping board or was it a knife? Or chopping board? Why did you try it?
Oh, that's what he was referring to.
So oh my God, what have I done there? Oh wow, I think I just cut off our live stream. What did I do? There we are. So that to me is absolutely priceless. Avi Yemeni got arrested, and I don't know, there's some media people sticking microphones or cameras at him. So people just started shouting stuff so the microphones would pick it up, like Avi Yemeni bashed his wife, Avi Yemeni bashed his wife. And the thing about a chopping board is because he was convicted, like his ex-partner said he threw a knife at her, and he tried to say it wasn't a knife, it was a chopping board. And people saying, like, how is that better? You threw it at her head. Shit. And so when they all started singing that song, "Where's Your Chopping Board, Avi?" it's just like the crowd absolutely humiliated him, which is priceless because he's garbage. He's garbage. But that I want to leave you with that because I love that. That was great.
Right, interesting. Right.
That was non-violent humiliation of an awful person. So thank you one and all for joining. Thanks again for coming in, Alexa. And I'm going to post that on the Angry Aussie podcast channel. And I hope to see all you fine people sometime soon. Look after yourselves. I'm going to say bye for now. Click the end.